Chapter 699. Han Yen Yao was like a wanderer who had wandered away from home for decades, suddenly reuniting with her closest family in a foreign land. All kinds of feelings welled up in her heart. At this moment, she cried tears of joy. With June Moxie calling her third aunt, Han Yen Yao was already satisfied. Everything was satisfied: 10 years of worry, 10 years of infatuation, 10 years of guilt. What kind of feeling was that? June Moxie sighed deeply. He understood Han Yen Yao's current feelings very well. But as a junior, and the other party was a woman, and also his future third aunt. This, it seemed that it was not appropriate for him to comfort her, might as well let her vent her feelings on her own. 10 years of accumulated feelings and grievances, fear and hope, that kind of feeling of gain and loss, had already tortured this former peerless beauty to the point of exhaustion. Letting her vent to her heart's content might not be a bad thing. The more Han Yen Yao cried, the sadder she became. She cried until the sky darkened, and she almost fainted. After a long time, Han Yen Yao gradually controlled her emotions, but she still lowered her head, and her body trembled uncontrollably. She asked, "Your third uncle, is he well?" Just asking this question seemed to have used up all the strength in her body. Although her voice was soft and low, almost inaudible, she hoped that the young man in front of her would give her a positive answer. "Third aunt, third uncle, is very healthy. His leg injury has already healed, and his cultivation has advanced by leaps and bounds. Now, he has reached the realm of Xinxian level 5. June Moxie deliberated and said, "But I can see that third uncle is not good except for his good health. Especially not happy. He is not happy at all. How can he be happy?" Han Yen Yao said in a low voice, "As long as I'm alive, he won't be happy. Because everything is because of me. It's all because of me, this inauspicious woman, that I've implicated him. It's not just unintentional, it's also Big Brother June, Second Brother June, and my 2 nephews. I'm truly guilty." June Moxie frowned, a little speechless. It seemed that this third aunt was even more unhappy, as if she had nothing to live for. This was not a good sign. "Monsieur, please tell Wui that I will use my death to apologize to Brother June and the others. I have let them down, and I can only use my life to make up for my sins. Although I know that the life of this unlucky person is far from enough, I really have no other way. I only hope that in my next life, and in the next life, I will be able to make up for it." Han Yen Yao's words became more and more incoherent, almost incoherent, and her tears fell to the ground. "The reason why I am not dead yet is because I have been waiting for the day when the June family will take revenge. Now, that day has finally come. This means that I have finally taken my revenge. My wish in this world has been fulfilled. The Shao family, I will not let them off even if I go to the netherworld." June Moxie sighed, and his eyes turned, ignoring her words, and continued, "But there are 2 dead knots in my third uncle's heart. These 2 knots are very difficult to untie, and if I cannot untie them, I am afraid." "Dead knots." Han Yen Yao smiled sadly. I understand. The first knot is the Shao family. This is relatively easy to deal with, and we can just kill them all. Revenge is obviously the best method, but the second knot is the Shao family's various sins." June Moxie's complexion became serious, and he explained the matter of the Huang Hua Hall. "This is very difficult to deal with." Han Yen Yao heard about the Shao family's heinous crimes, and her whole body trembled with anger. She clenched her teeth and said, "The Shao family is so insane. They won't even let a child off. They are worse than beasts." "Yes, we didn't expect the Shao family to be so vicious, and not only were they not satisfied with our June family, but they also took out their anger on these innocent people." June Moxie continued in a serious tone, "But there will be opportunities to make up for these things in the future. But the most important thing right now is the third uncle. These 2 knots exist in his heart, and I'm afraid that the third uncle will become a walking corpse even if he gets his revenge. Moreover, it is very likely that he won't be able to live because his heart is very bitter, and he will blame everything on himself just like third aunt, and it will be difficult for him to get over it. Ah, Wu Yi actually. Han Yenyao suddenly covered her mouth, and there was deep sorrow in her eyes. Wu Yu, my poor Wu Yi. This not, no one can help the third uncle solve it. Perhaps only you, third aunt, have the chance to solve it. Jun Moxie was very smart, and from what Han Yenyao said, he knew that the knot in his third aunt's heart was probably more serious than the third uncle's, and it was even more terrifying. Regarding this, they must take measures. Otherwise, even if the third uncle thought it through, third aunt would still not be able to, and if an accident happened, it would be an irreversible tragedy. In fact, what Jun Moxie said about the knot in Jun Wui's heart was not a lie, but he had already solved it in many ways, and it had almost been eliminated. The biggest knot at the moment was Han Yenyao heart. Me? How could it be me? Han Yenyao was so shocked that she forgot to cry. She raised her head and said, I, this unlucky person, am the root of everything, all the evil. If Wu Yi sees me again, I'm afraid he will only feel worse. How can I do it? Yes, it's because of you that so many things have happened. But now you don't want to take responsibility, and only want to die. Since there is a cause, there will be a result. If you still don't open it for him, who else can open it for him? Jun Moxie's voice became sharp, and Lengling said, Do you still want to escape? You escape, you hide in the deep mountains, and no one can see you. You are free and unfettered. 10 years, it may seem lonely, but can you compare to those innocent children who are still in a life worse than death? Every night they scream, and those innocent souls who died tragically, they can't rest in peace in the netherworld. Do you think you are atoning for your sins by being imprisoned here? You are simply escaping. Don't say any more. Don't say any more. Han Yenyao suddenly covered her ears and cried out in fear, I will die. I will die, okay? A person dying is like a lamp going out, it is indeed the simplest way to escape. Die to end everything. Isn't this escape? Not only is it the simplest way to escape, it is also the most despicable way to escape. The most thorough way to escape. Jun Moxie's voice became cold. If you die to end everything, then what about these people who are still alive? Who can they rely on? These children, how innocent are they? Many of them don't have hands, they can't do anything. They don't have tongues, they can't speak. Some are even blind, deaf, their legs are rotten, and the bones in their body are deformed. They will never have the chance to grow up. Even if they manage to survive, they can only be parasites in the future, without the ability to support themselves. But who is willing to feed them for free? Moreover, these children are the descendants of countless brave soldiers. But now, even if they manage to grow up, which woman is willing to marry them? What kind of man is willing to marry such deformed people? If that's the case, won't these hot-blooded men have no descendants? If you don't take responsibility for these things, then who will? Jun Moxie Lengling looked at Han Yenyao. It is because of you that all this has happened. Although you didn't do it yourself, the cause is because of you. You have always understood this, so why are you not willing to stand up and bear the responsibility that you should bear? Han Yenyao cried bitterly. Also, my third uncle's life has been ruined because of you. This knot in his heart is very serious, and after taking revenge, he will commit suicide at any time. You have already made him like this. Do you still want to watch him die? My grandfather had 3 sons, and 2 of them were already gone. If third uncle were to go, would the old man have to send his son off again? Do you really want to see my Jun family suffer a great change again? Jun Moxie's voice was cold. Yes, it is you. Han Yenyao, so many things, so many messes, all waiting for you to take responsibility for them, to atone for your sins. But you want to die, to escape from all of this. How can there be such a cheap thing? Then what do you want me to do? What should I do? What can I do? Han Yenyao cried out mournfully, her tears falling like rain. Do you think I don't want to make up for it? Do you think I don't want to atone for my sins? But what face do I have to face them? Do you want me to beg those poor children to forgive me? Beg for forgiveness? What's the point of that? Why don't you try to raise these children, take care of them personally, so that they can have a family in the future and live a good life, so that the souls of the heroes who died because of you can rest in peace in the underworld? Is it because you are afraid of hard work, afraid that the road ahead will be difficult, so you don't want to do it? Jun Moxie's voice was sonorous as he spoke loudly. I will do it. Han Yenyao swung her head, gritted her teeth, and her eyes emitted a resolute light. I will take care of them for the rest of their lives. Jun Moxie snorted and said, There's still my third uncle. Shouldn't you be by my third uncle's side, using your tenderness to resolve the layers of obstacles in his heart? Untie the heavy knot in his heart. The root of all this is because of you. You can only use your own hands, your own ability, to resolve these sins with your own hands. Only then can you atone for your sins, only then can you be at ease. This. Han Yenyao looked at him in shock, but she couldn't speak. The person she was most afraid to see now was the person in her heart that she couldn't let go of the most, the person she loved the most. The person she loved the most. The person she thought about countless times in the middle of the night, the only person she could see in her dreams. Junwei, do you think that it's enough for you to do everything yourself? What about my third uncle? My third uncle also needs to do these things to achieve psychological balance. The root of the sin is not only you, it's also him. Do you understand? Jun Moxie said aggressively. And the reason why he is like this is because of you, from the beginning to the end it's all for you. Do you understand? This is your responsibility. You have to bear it. I am willing to bear it. Han Yenyao closed her eyes and shouted, her tears falling like crazy. I will carry it until I die. Is this okay? In another hour and a half, which is tomorrow, it will be the 20th birthday of our cute little sister, little Yuanbao in the group. Oh, this little sister is lively and cute, everyone likes her very much, she's our little joy, haha, let's wish her a happy birthday. Chapter 700. Under the pressure of Jun Moxie's incisive words, Han Yenyao finally collapsed completely. She collapsed on the ground, without any strength in her body. Her eyes were lifeless, but she muttered to herself, I'll carry until I die. Not only do you have to carry, you have to take good care of my third uncle. Wholeheartedly take care of him. Use your tenderness to heal the scars in his heart over the years. You have to know that all of his future and everything has been completely ruined because of you. He has also suffered the greatest humiliation and the most miserable mental devastation. Jun Moxie said leisurely, a blood-clothed general who should be worshipped by thousands of people has fallen into such a miserable state. You should understand the pain in his heart. I understand. I really understand. Han Yenyao only felt a throbbing pain in her heart. In her mind, Junwei was reviled and despised by others, but he didn't dare to raise his head. She couldn't help but feel pain in her heart. She really wanted to fly to her lover's side and give him the greatest support. And my grandfather, how cruel it is to see his son die before him all these years. These scars also need you, his daughter-in-law, to heal, to be filial, to take care of them. And my mother, me, and my wife. These are all your responsibilities. Jun Moxie's mouth was too loose, and he unexpectedly pushed all the responsibilities to Han Yenyao. If he hadn't shut his mouth in time, he would have almost thrown the responsibility of finding a wife for his son and grandson when they grow up. Seeing that Han Yenyao agreed, Jun Moxie secretly breathed a sigh of relief. I'm so tired. It's easy for me to come up with so many reasons in the blink of an eye. At this moment, Jun Moxie somewhat admired himself. Such eloquence! Such quick thinking! The knots in the hearts of Jun Wui and Han Yen Yao were deeply rooted. To untie them, there was only one way: love. Only great love could untie such a knot in their hearts, and only love could heal the scars in their hearts. And only love could make their guilty hearts feel at ease. This peace of mind included their love for each other. For those children, this was a kind of psychological feeling. Although it wasn't anything substantial, every time the two of them did something for those children, they would feel much more comfortable and comforted. This was what we usually called conscience. But what Jun Moxie said was actually very selfish. He sincerely hoped that his third uncle and third aunt would be happy. Only by letting them be together could there be a possibility of happiness. He let Han Yen Yao take care of Junwui to atone for his sins. But as long as they were together, when Han Yen Yao took care of Junwui, presumably Junwui would treat and care for Han Yen Yao more. In this way, they would support each other and never leave each other for the rest of their lives. They would hold each other's hands and grow old together. When they felt that their hearts were at peace, they would suddenly realize that their lives had been very meaningful. Moreover, by then, they would probably have a group of children. This was Jun Moxie's sincere hope. Although what he said today was not polite at all, and could even be said to be harsh, but it was a good medicine for the heart of the heart. Han Yen Yao intentionally or unintentionally agreed to Jun Moxie's countless requests, but she did not feel the slightest bit forced. On the contrary, she felt that after she made her decision, she suddenly felt relaxed, as if a big stone had been lifted off the ground. Even her collapsed state of mind was once again mended. It was no longer the frozen heart from before, but a clear heart. In life, only when there is a clear goal can one pursue and work hard. And only when one has worked hard can one discover the beauty of life. This is the truth. I hope that we can work hard together towards our goal. At this moment, there was a light ta sound from outside, as if someone was jumping up. Jun Moxie did not move and just stood there. Lengling looked at the hole. A white shadow flashed, and a person appeared in the hole. The Lord of the Silver Blizzard City, Han Zhanmeng. Yaoer! Han Zhanmeng was just about to speak when he suddenly saw Jun Moxie. He could not help but be surprised. Who are you? The commotion below finally calmed down temporarily. The three Holy Lands had lost two of their top experts, and they were all listless and had no time to care about the people of the Silver Blizzard City. Han Zhanmeng immediately came to see his daughter after he ordered the Shao family to keep an eye on them. There was no doubt that what happened today was done by the Jun family. Since the Jun family had such strength, there was more hope in dealing with the three Holy Lands. So he was most worried about his daughter now. If someone came up to his daughter and told her that there was hope for the Jun family to take revenge, he was afraid that she would immediately commit suicide because of the guilt in her heart. After all, when he came that day, his daughter had expressed this intention. So Han Zhanmeng did not dare to be negligent. This time, even if he had to tie her up, he had to tie her up and keep an eye on her. But he did not expect to see a man here, and he could not help but be furious. I am Jun Moxie from the Jun family. Jun Moxie looked at him warmly. City Lord Han, we finally meet. You've seen me before? How do you know that I am Han Zhanmeng? Han Zhanmeng relaxed. Since he was Jun Wui's nephew, he would not harm Han Yen Yao. I saw you in the hall just now, and you also saw me. Perhaps you did not see my face clearly, but you did. Jun Moxie smiled. So you are the king of assassins. Han Zhanmeng suddenly realized, and he could not help but be shocked. Never in his wildest dreams would he have thought that the person who killed Wei Kong Kun with a single sword strike was this young man who was not even 20 years old. It's just a small trick. I've made Lord Han laugh. Jun Moxie said humbly. Han Zhanmeng was speechless. Is this modesty? Why does it sound like he is showing off? If this is insignificant skills, then this insignificant skill is too terrifying. Isn't this a little too hypocritical? Han Zhanmeng thought to himself as he quickly walked over and helped his daughter up. Seeing her tear-stained face, he could not help but be angry. Brat, what did you do to my daughter? Jun Mo-xie shrugged his shoulders helplessly. What Lord Han is saying, what else can I do to my own aunt? Mo-xie is a junior, and it has always been the elders who teach the juniors a lesson. What can a junior do to an elder? Han Zhanmeng was taken aback. What aunt? What senior or junior? What are you talking about? An uncle's wife is an aunt. Third aunt is the wife of Mo-xie's third uncle, so how is she not Mo-xie's elder? Jun Moxie explained patiently. Han Zhanmeng was furious. Who is your uncle's wife? Jun Moxie, you may be skilled in xianqi, but you can't talk nonsense. Even if Jun Wui really wants to marry my daughter, he needs to show his sincerity. What's the point of you talking about it here? City Lord Han, this of course there is sincerity, and even the Jun family is showing great sincerity. Jun Mo-xie smiled lightly and said, so we hope that your Xiao family can also bring out your sincerity and accomplish this matter. Our sincerity? Han Zhanmeng frowned. What do you mean? Do you think the Han family is not responsible for the Xiao family's despicable actions? Jun Moxie said calmly. I can see that the Han family does not want to go against the Jun family, but this is based on our current strength. If the Jun family's strength was still the same as before, I believe the city lord would not be willing to talk to the Han family in this way. Of course, the Jun family can understand this. In this world where the fist is the strongest, this is understandable. But the Jun family just doesn't want to make things difficult for the Han family, third uncle, and third aunt, but it doesn't mean that we don't have the ability to make things difficult for the Han family. The city lord is a wise man, and I think you understand the difference. You don't really think that the Silver Blizzard City has nothing to do with what happened back then, do you? Or perhaps the Han family is not responsible for the tragedy of the Jun family? Therefore, we need a balance, and this balance requires you to show enough sincerity. Jun Mo-xie spoke slowly. Although he spoke slowly, the heaviness in his words was obvious. Hearing Jun Moxie mention the past, Han Zhanmeng couldn't help but show a trace of shame on his face. But he was a righteous man, and he didn't want to speak against his conscience. Moreover, in the face of Jun Dashao's power, sophistry would only lower his status, so he couldn't help but be silent for a moment. After a long while, Han Zhanmeng finally sighed and said bitterly, the Silver Blizzard City indeed has an unshirkable responsibility for the Jun family's matter, and I will not deny it. Justice exists in the hearts of people, and there is no point in denying it. But, Jun Moxie, you also understand that the fist is the strongest, and this is the rule of the pugilistic world. The weak are prey to the strong, and the strong are respected. Revenge is the pugilistic world, Han Zhanmeng said. Jun Moxie didn't say anything, but listened quietly. Because the Jun family now has enough power to take revenge, and even has the capital to dominate the world, so you can come to me for an explanation, and even in such a condescending manner. But have you ever thought about what if the Jun family still doesn't have this power? What will the result be? Han Zhanmeng said lightly, if that is the case, even if the Han family knows the truth, they still may not give you an explanation. To be honest, they will still not give you an explanation, just like in the past. The pugilistic world is such a place. There is no doubt that the Jun family is miserable, and this is undeniable. But in this world, there are many things that are worse than the Jun family, and they happen almost every day, and will continue to happen in the future. I believe that this kind of tragedy will never end. Chapter 701. Part 3. Part 4. Han Zhanmeng said gravely, you killed your enemies and those who offended you. However, it is undeniable that those who provoke you are capable people. And this ability of his also determined that he had the corresponding responsibility. He deserved to die for offending you. But at the same time you killed him, you also unknowingly cut off the lives of some innocent people. Jun Moxie was not offended at all. Instead, he went into deep thought. The Shao family is in the Silver City, and we take care of them a lot because of the ancestral teachings. But in the end, no matter how powerful the Shao family is, they are still the subordinates of the Silver City, not the masters of the city. Han Zhanmeng said, just like the subordinates of the Jun family. The subordinates of the Jun family also have their own family matters to deal with, but when it comes to dealing with problems, they will also use the Jun family as a shield, and the consequences may not always be good. Even if the disaster is small now, it will eventually erupt. Put yourself in someone else's shoes. Everyone has the same thought. Would you immediately kill your most capable subordinate just because he did something wrong and endangered the lives or dignity of an innocent person who was as insignificant as an ant in your eyes? Would you immediately kill this capable subordinate as a warning to others? Or would you ask him to apologize to his mortal enemy? Beg for forgiveness? I don't think you would. If you could do that, you wouldn't be the domineering Jun Sunshao. And I, or the Silver City, wouldn't do that either, because at that time, the Shao family was still the backbone of the Silver City. And the strength of the Jun family was too weak at that time. So weak that it didn't even attract my attention. Han Zhanmeng spoke openly and honestly. Although his words were harsh, they were all true. Today, the reason why you can take revenge is because you have succeeded in rising. Han Zhanmeng said sharply, there are countless moral principles in the world, but you have to admit that those moral etiquette only binds ordinary people. What mattered between the upper echelons was strength, not reason. Justice did not lie in the hearts of men. Right and wrong depended on one's strength. As long as one had strength, one would be justified. Without strength, it didn't matter even if he was right, because no one would offend such a powerful force just for the sake of your reason. It's easy to add flowers to a brocade, but it's hard to send charcoal in snowy weather. Among the higher-ups, there is almost no one who is willing to go to the rescue. Han Zhanmeng laughed mockingly. If a prince breaks the law, he will be punished just like a commoner. This was the famous slogan of the law set by the ruler, but in reality, in the past 10,000 years, which prince did not have a heavy debt of blood on his hands? But when did they really share the crime with the common people? Even if he was the son of an ordinary county magistrate, he wouldn't be punished the same way as a commoner if he committed a crime, right? So, it's just a beautiful slogan. Why are they called commoners? Why was he called a prince? This seemingly fair and selfless slogan had, in fact, clearly divided people's social classes. In fact, the true meaning of this sentence is, if a prince breaks the law, who dares to arrest him? Han Zhanmeng laughed mockingly. Regarding what happened in the past, the Han family can only say sorry, and that's all we can do. When the Shao family wanted to destroy the Jun family, it was us who protected them. It was Yao who used her life to threaten you, so that you could be safe and have the opportunity to take revenge today. From this point of view, the Han family may be responsible for the Jun family, but we also owe them a favor. I'm not trying to be pretentious here. This is the truth, regardless of whether you agree with it or not. Han Zhanmeng said lightly. It's precisely because you were too weak at that time. Even if the Shao family really killed all of you, it wouldn't be a big deal to us. Now that you can take revenge, isn't it also because you have enough strength? Very reasonable. I completely agree with what the City Lord has said. In my heart, my opinion is exactly the same as yours. Jun Moxie was silent, but in the same sincere voice, he said sincerely, yes, this is the Jianghu. The Jianghu is a helpless place. Right and wrong only depend on strength, and justice lies in one's fist. Therefore, there is nothing wrong with what the Blizzard Silver City did in the past. I understand. But understanding is one thing, and how to act is another. I still want an explanation from you. As you said, it's because the June family has the strength now. When we don't have the strength, we don't have an explanation, because that would only be asking for humiliation. June Moxie said frankly, you said that the Han family owes the June family a favor, but I don't agree with that. Because you didn't do it for the June family, but for your own daughter. So please don't say anything about a favor. Therefore, the Blizzard Silver City still has to pay the price. June Moxie said lightly, but mercilessly. As Lord Han said just now, I also want to return the favor. This is the Jianghu. Yes, this is the Jianghu. Han Zhanmeng said after a long silence. Monsieur, can't you just let the Blizzard Silver City go? Han Yen Yao also stood up and looked at June Moxie imploringly. If that's the case, then how will your third uncle and I live in the future? How will we face each other? Let the Blizzard Silver City go? June Moxie looked at her and shook his head slowly, but firmly, and said word by word, absolutely not. Stand down, Yao. This has nothing to do with you. Han Zhanmeng shouted and faced June Moxie. If that's the case, then what price does the third young master want the Han family to pay? What kind of price do we have to pay in order for the June family to be satisfied? Or perhaps, third young master June? June Moxie was stunned when he asked this question. The Blizzard Silver City had an undeniable responsibility, but the Han family was even more so. But how would they get an explanation? How would they pay the price? This was a big problem. If the Han family was really in trouble, then Jun Wui and Han Yen Yao would still be in trouble. Moreover, the Han family was neither the mastermind nor the instigator of the incident, nor did they add fuel to the fire. They definitely did not do anything themselves. At most, they would just stand by and watch. Moreover, regardless of whether or not they had the intention to help, they had still interfered with the Shao family's plan. Even if they were responsible, how big of a price would they have to pay? The Jun family was admittedly innocent at that time. But the Han family was only responsible for leading the Jun family. So, it could even be said that they were innocent. However, Jun Emosia was absolutely unwilling to let them go just like that. The Jun family had a heavy debt of blood. How could he just let it go? The two of them looked at each other and didn't say anything. This problem was like a hot potato. No matter who threw it into their hands, they wouldn't be able to handle it. After a long time, Jun Moxie stood up and said, "The Han family may not have interfered with the Shao family out of righteousness, but Third Aunt was willing to die to protect the Shao family. For the sake of Third Aunt, this matter can be decided by Master Han. First, the relationship between Third Uncle and Third Aunt cannot be damaged. Second, the price must be paid. I only have these two requests." No matter how he thought about it, it didn't seem right, and he was at his wit's end. Jun Dashao, who had always been full of schemes, was at a loss this time. But not having an idea was one thing, and dealing with it was another. The more he thought about it, the more depressed he became. In his anger, Jun Dashao was obviously becoming unreasonable, and even his words became rude and unreasonable. "You are making things difficult for me. You are making things difficult for me. How can there be such a good idea in this world that satisfies both sides?" Han Zhanmeng smiled bitterly. "Then I might as well tell you this. You can do whatever you want with the Han family, but I only have two requests. First, Yao must be happy, and second, we are willing to pay the price." Jun Moxie was dumbfounded. "Master Han, how can you be so shameless?" Today, he had seen what it meant to be a sly old fox. His giving you a taste of your own medicine had directly backfired on Jun Dashao. Han Zhanmeng could only smile bitterly. "Don't tell me your conditions aren't bad? You are shameless when it comes to me." This brat was really a pure-blooded Jianghu person. He had already grasped the essence of shamelessness. His shamelessness had already reached the point of perfection. "Master Han, I will leave this matter to you to think of a solution. I don't care. What a headache! June Moxie smiled and said, By the way, Master Han, please tell the people from the 3 Holy Lands that there will be a decisive battle at the foot of the Sword Peak tomorrow. Victory or defeat will be decided by this battle. Life and death are decreed by fate. The foot of the Sword Peak? Han Zhanmeng asked curiously. The foot of the Sword Peak, June Moxie said with certainty. A ruthless light flashed in his eyes. Seeing the cold light in June Moxie's eyes, Han Zhanmeng could not help but shiver. This is a matter between us and the 3 Holy Lands. I hope the Silver City will not interfere. June Moxie's eyes flashed strangely. After Master Han brings the message back, I will immediately write another letter of challenge and send it over. Good. Han Zhanmeng agreed and then said, But as for the price, I think it is more appropriate for you, June Sunshao, to think of a way. After all, you are the creditor, and we are willing to listen to you. I am really not suitable. June Moxie said sincerely, Such a big matter must be decided by the elders. My third uncle and I are not qualified to make the decision. My grandfather can make the decision, but he is far away in Tianxiang, and he is so old, so it is not convenient for him to come and go. Master Han, you are also an elder, so you can make the decision directly. I am sure you will not mistreat poor people like us. Han Zhanmeng was furious. Too shameless. Too shameless. You can make the decision when you come to take revenge, but when it comes to this kind of thing, you can't make the decision? And you still have the nerve to say that you are the victim? Who has ever seen such a tyrannical victim? Master Han felt that he might faint from anger if he said another word to this bastard, so he pulled his daughter down the mountain unhappily. He did not even say a word to June Moxie before he left. However, when he pulled his daughter, he was shocked because Han Yen Yao didn't resist or object. She just obediently allowed herself to be pulled down by him. What the hell is going on? Why is she so obedient? Master Han was really a little puzzled. Watching the father and daughter leave, June Moxie finally decided to go back. Before leaving, he looked at the mountain reluctantly and murmured, Such a straight mountain, it is a pity that it collapsed. Chapter 702. When June Moxie returned to the camp, he saw the supreme assassin, Chu Chihuan, sitting angrily in his tent, talking to Mei Shuyan, Solitary Eagle, and the rest. June Moxie walked in with a smile. Oh, isn't this the world-famous Venerable Assassin? I heard that you've successfully assassinated the 4th level Venerable of Life and Death, Wei Kong Kun, successfully advancing from Supreme Assassin to Venerable Assassin. Congratulations! This is a major event in the world of assassins. I don't think I've ever heard of a venerable expert being assassinated, and the assassin being able to escape unscathed. Your reputation will naturally rise to a whole new level, and you'll shine in the world. Chu Chihuan didn't know whether to laugh or cry at June Dashao's praises. He scolded nonchalantly. Those idiots from the 3 Holy Lands, they've really angered me to death. Saying that they're pigs is an insult to the simple and honest animals like pigs. You shouldn't be blaming me now, right? Do you understand how you became the scapegoat now? June Moxie said, rejoicing in other people's misfortune. I understand now. This daddy almost fell down from the roof when I heard them forcefully pushing the blame to me. F***ck. Such a ridiculous thing could actually happen to me. I'm really lucky. Unlucky. Bloody unlucky. Chu Chihuan's face turned black. Mei Shuyan and the rest did not understand what was going on and asked. With Chu Chihuan's strength, how did he manage to assassinate a venerable expert? And the Venerable of Life and Death, Wei Kong Kun, had really died? Naturally, they were very interested in this matter. Thus, June Moxie narrated the entire matter once again, especially the affirmation in Wei Kong Kun's and the rest's voices. He even imitated them to perfection, adding even more oil to the story. Ha 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 ha! Everyone burst into laughter. The solitary falcon laughed so hard that tears began to come out of his eyes, and he clutched his stomach as he said, "Old Chu is really unlucky. Not only does he not get to say anything good, but he also has to carry all the blame on himself. This is too." Chu Chi-huan looked up at the sky and made an expression that looked like he wanted to cry but had no tears. Everyone laughed so hard that they fell down. Solitary Eagle simply squatted on the ground and didn't get up. However, June Moxie laughed for a while, then displayed his skills and spread out the 4 treasures of the study. Schwa, 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 the brush moved like a dragon and a snake, and was done in one stroke. Then, he put it into his bosom and said, "You guys continue with your work, I'll go out for a while." "Oh, that's right. Everyone, gather at the Silver Blizzard City's Sword Peak before tomorrow morning. Get ready to beat the drowning dogs." "All right. Hey, where are you going?" Jun Wui asked. "I'm going to issue a challenge," June Moxie said hurriedly. "Wait. First, show me the letter of challenge." Jun Wui shouted. As the commander of the army, how could he not read the challenge? Jun Moxie was very annoyed by Jun Moxie's outrageous behavior. Jun Mo Xie blinked his eyes. Then, he slowly fished it out. 5 o'clock? You said it at 5 o'clock. Why do you want us to arrive before 7 o'clock? Jun Wui knitted his eyebrows. The weather here is so good and the air is so fresh. It's good to let those guys cool off first. I'm a kind-hearted person. Jun Moxie laughed mischievously. Jun Wui was so angry that he laughed and said, "How can there be such a thing? How can you treat military affairs like this? If you were to go to war, you would be sentenced to death if you changed the general's order without permission. Do you know that?" "Oh, third uncle, we are not really going to war." Okay, just listen to me this time. If we go too early, the consequences will be unimaginable." Jun Moxie said mysteriously, "The Sword Peak is going to collapse." Everyone was shocked. Dongfang Wenqing stood up and said, "The Sword Peak is going to collapse? Really?" "It's true." "Really?" Jun Moxie promised seriously. Chu Chi-huan and Mei Shiyan looked at each other and couldn't help but think of the landslide in the valley. Could it be? Everyone was stunned. Jun Moxie took the challenge letter and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Only his words were left in the air. "Tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock, I'll be waiting for you on the mountain. Don't come early." After a while, Jun Wui cursed. "This brat is really slippery. But the words written on the challenge letter are too infuriating? Who would write a challenge letter like that? It's too unstylish." Everyone was speechless. Chu Chi-hun, on the other hand, was thinking, "This Sword Peak is much higher and bigger than those 2 mountains. I wonder if a venerable would be crushed to death if such a peak collapses?" It was already afternoon. The atmosphere in Blizzard Silver City was heavy. Mo Xiao Yao and Jia Qingyun sat in the main hall, speechless. Both of their faces were heavy. In the main hall there were 2 ice coffins. The corpses of the 2 venerables laid quietly inside. Surrounding them were over 500 experts from the 3 Holy Lands. This time, the lineup of the 3 Holy Lands could be said to be unprecedentedly strong. It was almost a third of their entire strength. In other words, apart from the saints, this lineup was equivalent to the entire strength of any one of the 3 Holy Lands. "Qingyun, perhaps we've come in the wrong place this time," Mo Xiao Yao said slowly as he looked at Wei Kongkun's coffin. His voice was desolate. "A great battle is about to begin. Why does Brother Mo say such ominous words?" Jia Qingyun asked curiously. "It's not just now. Ever since we set off, I've had a bad premonition in my heart. I keep feeling that something big is going to happen this time." Mo Xiao Yao sighed. "As expected, we've already lost 4 venerables the moment we got here. There's also the heartless venerable, Du Ju, who is still bedridden. Everything that has happened has proved my hunch. Right now, this ominous premonition is getting stronger and stronger. And this old man's emotions are getting more and more chaotic." Mo Xiao Yao sighed. Could it be that something is going to happen again? Jia Qingyun couldn't help but shiver. He then laughed dryly and said, I think Brother Mo is worrying too much. Brother Wei's death this time must have made us feel sad. Not to mention Brother Mo, even this old man is feeling melancholy. 400 years of hard work destroyed just like that. Life is unpredictable, it's really like this. Mo Xiao Yao was silent for a long time before letting out a long sigh. This is the path of the pugilistic world. Once you step on this path, you'll either be killed or punished by the heavens. Since ancient times, how many people have been able to escape? How many people have actually managed to die of old age? Even if it's a saint, how many of them are there? We've already understood this a few hundred years ago. Now that we're bringing it up again, it's really, why bother? Jia Qingyun's emotions were stirred up by him, and he could not help but sigh. After I've avenged Brother Wei, and gotten rid of the Jun families Jun Moxie and Venerable Mei, this old man will immediately return to the Holy Lands and live in seclusion. When the war for seizing the heavens comes, I'll just leave this stinky body at the peak of Pillar of Heaven's peak. War for seizing the heavens. Peak of Pillar of Heaven's peak. Mo Xiao Yao's expression was one of shock. This old man suddenly feels that saying this now is so far away, unreachable. Getting rid of the Jun families Jun Moxie and Venerable Mei is already a very difficult task. As for avenging Brother Wei, it's even more difficult to do. You and I both saw the assassination methods of that king of assassins with our own eyes. Honestly speaking, if that sword had been aimed at me, Mo Xiao Yao, I would have ended up like Wei Kong Kun. A trace of fear appeared on Mo Xiao Yao's face. I don't have any confidence in dodging that sword. That sword was truly domineering. Jia Qingyun also revealed a look of lingering fear, clearly recalling the elegance of that sword. What's domineering is not the sword, but the person. Because you'll never know where that sword will come from, that's the scariest part. But by the time you realize it, it's already too late, just like Wei Kong Kun. Mo Xiao Yao shook his head lightly. Everyone says that we've been through hundreds of battles, but in our lives, how have we only been through hundreds and thousands of battles? But against such a sword, Mo Dao had no way to deal with it. Even now, he still doesn't have any method to deal with it. In fact, up until now, the only method I can think of is to disintegrate my body like Brother Wei did. But if that's the case, how are we going to deal with the subsequent sword qi? Mo Xiao Yao shook his head, troubled. Also, who is that person? When did such an earth-shattering killer appear in this world? With the eyes and ears of our 3 holy lands, how could we not know anything about it? This matter is simply too terrifying. In any case, the pugilistic world now seems to have changed. It's no longer the pugilistic world we were once familiar with. Jia Qingyun sighed and said, Brother Mo, could it be that our era has already passed? Mo Xiao Yao was stunned. After a long time, he said in a daze, Our era has already passed? Has it really passed? His voice was very soft, as if he was asking himself, but also as if he was asking the heavens. At this moment, a clear voice rang out from outside. Mo Xiao Yao, get your ass out here to receive the letter of challenge. The voice was extremely clear and melodious, and it reverberated on the silent peak of the snowy peak. However, the content of the voice was extremely vulgar. Mo Xiao Yao raised his brows, but he did not get angry. He said quietly, So it's the king of assassins who came previously. May I ask what advice you have for me? He could already tell that the person who spoke was the white-robed man who assassinated Wei Kong Kun in the morning. Facing such an enemy, even if Mo Xiao Yao had 10,000 more guts, he would not dare to go out and face him alone. If he were to use that sword again, Wei Kong Kun would be the best example to learn from. The people from the 3 holy lands all stood up. Mo Xiao Yao gave a look, and Jia Qingyun, Xiao Tianya, and Chu Wuqing moved, forming a defensive formation with Mo Xiao Yao. Everyone's eyes were filled with fear and hatred as they walked out silently. Suddenly, with a whoosh, a white object flew in. A maniacal laughter rang out from outside. Ha ha ha, I knew you guys wouldn't dare to come out, so I might as well throw it in for you. 3 holy lands. Ha ha ha, what a joke, there's no need to call them 3 turtle nests. A bunch of turtles hiding in their shells, and you still have the cheek to call yourselves holy lands? You really make me laugh till my stomach hurts. The laughter faded away, and it was obvious that the person had already left. The white piece of paper fluttered down. It turned out to be a piece of white silk. The surface of the silk was filled with words written in strong strokes. Chapter 703. Mo Xiao Yao glanced at it and his face changed. His eyes were filled with anger. This was a letter of challenge, but the content was enough to make his lungs explode. Rather than calling it a letter of challenge, it was more like a letter of cursing. The content was as follows: a letter of challenge. Tomorrow morning, at the foot of the Sword Peak, all our grudges will be settled in one battle. At that time, we will kill Mo Xiao Yao, step on Jia Qingyun, punch Xiao Tianya, and kill Chu Wuqing with a fart. Hermitage hypocrites, supreme Golden City villains, and illusory blood sea losers will all turn into ashes tomorrow. The fall of the 3 remaining lands will begin tomorrow morning. Looking down on the world, disdainfully at all, I, Mo Xie, will reign supreme in the universe. The 3 remaining lands will become a laughingstock. Brilliant heavenly punishment, evergreen. Venerables, saints, a pile of bones, clowns, not a single one will be spared. Xiao Yao bastard, do you dare to come and fight? Green cloud rats, do you have the guts? If you come, only death awaits you. Don't blame me for not warning you. I want to turn your dirty bodies into fertilizer to nourish this boundless land. I want to turn your lowly souls into smoke and send you flying with a fart. Awu, if you don't dare to come, then go home and drink milk. Let your mommy feed you more guts. Awu, also, this is a battle between Tian Fa, the Jun family, and the 3 remaining lands. If the 3 remaining lands don't dare to come themselves, you can look for Silver City as reinforcements. Let them help you collect your corpses. I'm broad-minded, kind and charitable, handsome and unrestrained, and boundlessly magnanimous. I'm exceptionally lenient towards those who are about to die, allowing them all, ha ha ha, if you are afraid, you can commit suicide. Otherwise, I will have to waste my energy to teach you bastards a lesson, ha ha. In the end, it was a series of laugh words. His arrogance was totally revealed. Not only did it insult Mo Xiao Yao and the rest, it also changed the word saint in the 3 holy lands to remaining. This was truly intolerable. This was directly challenging the limits of one's tolerance. Mo Xiao Yao's eyes almost turned blue. In the face of such provocation, if he could still endure it, then he would directly become a saint. Let's fight. Let's see who will emerge victorious. Tomorrow morning next year will be the death anniversary of the Jun family and the Xian beasts of Tian Fa. Mo Xiao Yao's face was ashen as he smashed the letter of challenge into pieces. Based on Brother Mo's judgment, if we were to fight them head-on, what are our chances of winning? Jia Qingyun's expression was solemn as he calculated carefully with a frown on his face. However, the more he calculated, the less confident he felt. Currently, we have a total of 543 people. You and I are the strongest among them, so we'll each lead one group. As for the third group, unfortunately, Brother Wei is already dead, so we don't have a leader. Xiao Tianya has reached the 3rd level of the Venerable Realm, so he can lead the 3rd group. Mo Xiao Yao sighed and said slowly, and Chu Wuqing is slightly behind, so he can be in the middle. As he said this, he suddenly fell silent for a moment. Then, a look of disappointment appeared on his face as he said, "The series of unforeseen events has greatly reduced our strength. Our overall strength is no match for Tian Fa's, and the current situation is even worse. but in terms of high-end strength, we are still superior to them. A chaotic battle is extremely disadvantageous for us. Emo Xiaoyao sighed. The other side still has a military genius like the blood-uniform General Junwui, and the Xian beasts are simple-minded and easily follow orders. The lesson from the battle with Xiao Tianye and the rest is clear evidence. So if we can avoid a chaotic battle, we should try not to. A chaotic battle is indeed disadvantageous for us. Since that's the case, the best solution now is to fight one-on-one. Jia Qingyun said. They have the advantage in numbers, and their overall strength is far superior to ours. But we have many experts. If we can use some method to force them to fight one-on-one, then we'll have victory in our hands. Even if the other side has the help of the King of Assassins, as long as we don't face a sneak attack from him, I believe we still have a good chance of winning. Let's see when the time comes. If we can't force them to fight one-on-one, we need to start a chaotic battle as soon as possible. We need to start a chaotic battle as fast as lightning. Leave Junwui no room to react. Then, in this short period of time, the four of us will join forces and attack with all our might, forming an unparalleled force. First, we will kill Venerable Mei, then we will think of a way to kill Chu Qihun. Emo Xiaoyao's face revealed a sinister look as he said decisively, Jun Moxie is still not a concern for now. We need to attack together with the force of a thunderbolt. As long as we get rid of these two, we can gather our forces to deal with the mysterious King of Assassins. Emo Xiaoyao thought deeply and said, we need to deal with that person carefully. Only in this way will our chances of winning be higher. That person is too scary. Even if we fight fairly, I don't have the confidence to win. But if we do that, then what about the King of Assassins' sneak attack, while we're dealing with Venerable Mei and Chu Qihun? That person's movement skills are too strange. Even Venerable Mei, who is also known for his movement skills, might not be as good as him. Jia Qingyun frowned and said worriedly, activate the human wave tactic. We'll completely surround him and use our lives to delay him. Emo Xiaoyao's face revealed a sinister look, and a merciless glint flashed in his eyes. Even if we all die, we must completely delay him. Delay him until we have the time to fight. Jia Qingyun took a deep breath and said after a while, if that's the case, the sacrifice will be huge. This is the pugilistic world. Emo Xiaoyao Lengling said. Even you and I are prepared to sacrifice our lives at any time, let alone them. We can't afford to lose this battle. If we lose as well, it won't matter whether they survive or not. Jia Qingyun nodded slowly, agreeing with his words. If that's the case, do we still want the people from Blizzard Silver City to participate? Jia Qingyun pondered for a while and finally asked. Emo Xiaoyao stood up and paced back and forth with a dark face. He said slowly, the letter of challenge clearly states that if the people from Blizzard Silver City appear at the battlefield, it will cause the other party to look down on us. But Blizzard Silver City cannot just stay out of this. Send 10 superior supreme experts to keep an eye on them. Once the battle breaks out, let them launch a surprise attack from the back of the Jun family and Tian Fa. They may not be able to form a significant fighting force, but I believe they can still create chaos. He laughed sinisterly and said heavily, it's not that easy to stay out of this. We just have to drag them into this whirlpool. As for Blizzard Silver City, the Han family will definitely not do their best. Right now, we have no time to bother with them, as long as they don't go against us. As Emo Xiaoyao spoke, his eyes suddenly brightened. Also, focus on the Xiao family. Gather all the Earth Xian and above fighters of the Xiao family. They are mortal enemies with the Jun family, so they will definitely give it their all. Also, give them another hope. Promise them that if they can contribute greatly in this battle, the Xiao family will not be annihilated. If they can successfully destroy the Jun family and Tian Fa, they will be able to enjoy Blizzard Silver City forever. If that's the case, I'm afraid the Han family will have a change of heart. They are after all the local tyrants. At this time, if Jia Qin-yun was stunned. If the Jun family loses, so what if the Han family has a change of heart? If the Jun family wins, how can the Shao family be unscathed? We're just giving them a ray of hope in this desperate situation. Do you think the Shao family will be left with much manpower after this battle? Emo Xiao Yao said sinisterly. It's indeed a brilliant plan. Very good. Jia Qin-yun nodded in agreement. Shao Tianye, immediately lead a few people with the Shao family as guides. Go to the Sword Peak and observe the terrain of the battle. See if there are any good places to set up an ambush. Hide some people in advance and use them as a surprise attack during the battle. Mo Xiao Yao Lengling ordered. Shao Tianye agreed and waved his hand. A few experts with better qing gong followed behind him and floated out of the hall. Mo Xiao Yao stared coldly at the door. He stood with his hands behind his back, unmoving like a mountain. After a long time, he said slowly, Brother Wei, Brother Hua, your souls are not far away. Revenge for you will be tomorrow. The blood of the Jun family will fill your graves. At that time, you will be smiling even in hell. A boundless murderous aura emanated from his body and rose up. A few large birds on the snowy peak were frightened by this terrifying atmosphere. They cried out in panic and flew far away. Mo Xiao Yao felt the blood in his heart boil. His dry fingers curled up slowly and clenched into a fist, his knuckles protruding. An intense battle intent that hadn't arisen in hundreds of years once again surged majestically from his heart. At this moment, he felt as if his head could hold up the heavens, and his feet were on the ground. He was the only one in the world, and he was free and unfettered. Ha ha ha! Fight! The grudge of life and death will be settled tomorrow. Fight it out! This unfettered venerable let out a lofty roar. This roar was actually infused with all of his profound strength and cultivation, causing the mountains and valleys to buzz and reverberate. The snow on the mountain peaks in the distance crashed down in large chunks. His roar was like thunder, and the sound was earth-shattering. It actually caused several small avalanches. It only stopped after a long time. Such a scene caused the originally low spirits of the experts from the three holy lands to soar. Their ambitions were reignited. They shouted in unison, "The grudge of life and death will be settled tomorrow. Fight it out!" Everyone shouted in unison, and their voices spread far and wide, echoing back and forth between the mountains. But in the empty echoes of the mountains, although the voice was majestic, it also sounded a little desolate. Jun Moxie was already at the bottom of the Sword Peak. To be more precise, he was already dozens of feet underground. Jun Mo Xie stood calmly in the soil with a solemn expression on his face. He felt that his entire body was brimming with energy. Then, he suddenly turned around and faced a thick layer of soil and rock. His palms rotated and slowly pushed out. It seemed as if he was pushing something that weighed millions and millions of kilograms. His palms emitted a yellow light. Then, his entire arm also turned yellow. Then, his entire body turned yellow. His entire body seemed like a tower of light in the darkness. It was as if he was a Buddha from the ninth heaven. His entire body was covered with a sacred halo. Suddenly, he shouted slowly, "5 elements, power of earth, out. Today is Christmas Eve. Tomorrow is Christmas Day. Here, I wish everyone a safe and happy life. There's one more thing. Ever since I started writing this book, I haven't had a day off for 2 years. I don't even have time to drink and chat with my friends. This afternoon, a few old classmates came to me and asked me to come out for karaoke tonight. I said yes. But today's chapter didn't go as smoothly as I expected. Or maybe I want to go out and have fun too much. Ever since I agreed, my mind has been a little uneasy. It had actually lasted until now. They've called me many times. They've been waiting for me at the karaoke hall for 3.5 hours now. Later, after sending the second chapter, I'll go out and have fun. Tonight it'll be 2 chapters. Chapter 704. The yellow light that was overflowing from his body instantly dispersed, and all of it blended into the stone layer. Wave after wave of yellow light seeped in, and after a long time, it finally returned to its original dark color. Although June Moxie's cultivation had improved greatly, he still couldn't help but gasp a few times. He slowly adjusted his breathing, and slowly gathered his strength again. The Hongjun Pagoda in his mind rotated continuously, and a large amount of spiritual energy gushed out and blended into his meridians, replenishing the large amount of energy that he had just lost. The entire sword peak was after all too huge. If they really wanted to knock him down in one go, it would be impossible. Even if he had a great power like the power of Earth, it was still difficult. At least with June Moxie's current ability, it was still impossible. Therefore, he could only come again and again. An iron rod was ground into a needle, and the majestic peak was flattened. Every time, he gave it his all. Under the infusion of spiritual energy from the Hongjun Pagoda, June Moxie's recovery speed was exceptionally fast. Not long after, another piece of yellow light spun out and blended into the other side of the soil layer. Then, it was followed by another 2 times. June Moxie once again entered into a deep state of adjustment. Contrary to June Dashao's expectations, this sword peak was actually so sturdy. Really sturdy, so many times, and so many cycles of the power of Earth, but it still couldn't shake the foundation of the sword peak. The degree of sturdiness of this 10,000-year-old mysterious ice had really reached a jaw-dropping, terrifying level. Wait, 10,000-year-old mysterious ice. Isn't it water? It may not be that the power of Earth couldn't shake the majestic peak, but my method is wrong. June Moxie's eyes lit up. After adjusting his breathing, he suddenly opened his eyes and lightly shouted, 5 elements. Power of water, out. The next moment, his eyes suddenly turned azure blue. His 2 hands crisscrossed and constantly pinched different hand signs. His technique was complicated and there were endless changes. It was as if the 1,000-hand guanyin was dancing at this moment, and it was too much for the eyes to take in. Then, a hazy azure light shone from his hand and body. Like butterflies that had found their way home, they melted into the layer of ice. After releasing the power of water 4 times in a row, June Moxie was exhausted once more. He sat on the ground and gasped for breath. After adjusting his breathing for a while, June Moxie changed his position and started the cycle of the power of Earth and power of water again. June Moxie finally entered the most central lower level of the sword peak after doing the same in all 4 directions of the underground of the sword peak. In other words, it was directly below the heaven and earth sword. The center. This was the key to everything. June Moxie was surprised to find that after he used the yin-yang escape art, it was extremely difficult for him to move. It was even difficult. This was the second time he encountered such a situation after learning the yin-yang escape art. The first time he was blocked was in the Tian Fa forest. It was surrounded by a layer of fog, and after asking Mei Shuiyan, he found out that it was the mysterious place where the 9 serenities and 14 masters escaped to. And because the previous Tian Fa Saint King was guarding this place, he was surrounded by the fog of the Misty Mansion, and it was difficult for him to communicate with the outside world. This time, the obstruction he encountered was even greater than the previous one. However, from the beginning to the end, all he could see was the fog, but the scenery in front of him made June Dashao enjoy it so much that he forgot to go back. He even admired his actions of destroying the sword peak, and for the first time, he felt regret and even regret. At the center of the sword peak, there was actually a layer of colorful Xian ice. Furthermore, this layer of Xian ice was different from the ones outside. It contained an astonishing amount of pure heaven and earth spiritual qi. Such dense heaven and earth spiritual qi, even for someone like June Moxie, who had a body filled with heaven and earth spiritual chi. He felt as if he was suffocating. This was not like solid spiritual chi, but solid spiritual chi in the truest sense. What kind of miracle was this? And this spiritual chi was also colorful, like a rainbow, shuttling back and forth in the layer of Xian ice, making the entire underground space even more dazzling and beautiful. It's so beautiful! Jun Moxie stared at the scene in front of him, dumbfounded. So beautiful! So comfortable! I'm so fucking jealous! And right at this moment, without any warning, Jun Mo Xie only felt a loud bang in his mind. The Hongjun Pagoda rose up with a whoosh, rolled and revolved. Then, thousands of rays of light shone out, dazzling and dazzling. The Hongjun Pagoda had moved on its own. Jun Moxie was shocked. Suddenly, he felt dizzy, and the Hongjun Pagoda floated out from between his eyebrows. It was like a gemstone that had been concentrated millions of times. Even though it had turned into dust, its color did not change. It only stayed in front of him for a short moment. Then, the Hongjun Pagoda floated to the top of his head and rotated. Its color became more and more intense, and its size became bigger and bigger. Gradually, it expanded to the size of half a house. Suddenly, the door of the Hongjun Pagoda opened. This time, not a single bit of heaven and earth spiritual chi came out. Instead, the seven-colored heaven and earth spiritual chi within the layer of Xian ice seemed to have encountered an irresistible suction force. Crazily, wave after wave, the heaven and earth spiritual chi flew towards the Hongjun Pagoda, like a moth flying into a flame. In fact, it was like a moth flying into a flame. Jun Moxie could clearly see that the moment the spiritual chi entered the Hongjun Pagoda, the colorful lights suddenly changed. They lined up according to the same kind of spiritual chi and entered in an orderly manner. Although it was orderly, the speed was even more shocking. White would be pure white, black would be pure black, and red would be pure red. Everything was organized neatly. The Hongjun Pagoda was like a giant that could never eat its fill. It swallowed the spiritual chi like a whale swallowing the sea. The colorful spiritual chi turned into beams of pure light and surged into the Hongjun Pagoda. Jun Moxie was very envious of this scene. He could not help but think of getting a share of the spiritual chi. If he could absorb the spiritual chi in front of him, even if it was not a lot, it would still be very beneficial. But just as he was about to move, he discovered that he could not even move a finger, but this was not a strange situation. Because every time the Hongjun Pagoda moved on its own, he would not be able to move from start to finish. It took a full hour. Even with the terrifying suction of the Hongjun Pagoda, it still took half an hour. This was the full absorption of the Hongjun Pagoda at full power. This kind of strength, this kind of huge energy, caused Jun Moxie's scalp to go numb. After an hour, the rainbow light finally dissipated completely, and the entire layer of Xian ice became transparent, but the brightness did not decrease at all. The suction of the Hongjun Pagoda became stronger and stronger. It even made a xiao-xiao sound in the air. Finally, the Xian ice layer emitted a slight tremor. Suddenly, a palm-sized object emitted a dazzling white light. It rose from the Xian ice layer, and flew into the Hongjun Pagoda with a whoosh at the speed of light. Even with Jun Moxie's eyesight, he could not see what this dazzling white light was. The Hongjun Pagoda's rotation suddenly calmed down. Then, with a schwa sound, it pierced through the space between Jun Moxie's eyebrows and quietly returned to his sea of consciousness. It was motionless, like a huge man who had eaten and drunk his fill, and needed to quietly digest his food. Jun Moxie instantly felt that he had regained his ability to move. He hurriedly gasped for 2 breaths. Only then did he realize that he had lost the ability to breathe in the past 2 hours. If not for the great improvement in his cultivation, he would have almost suffocated to death. After gasping for a few times, he realized that his surroundings had sunk into darkness. There was not even a little bit of light. It was quiet and lifeless, just like a ghost town. Walking forward a few steps, he came to the place where the Xian ice layer was. He stretched out his hand and touched it lightly. With a pop sound, a hole actually appeared. "I'll sue you." Jun Moxie could not help but blurt out, "Isn't the suction of the Hongjun Pagoda too terrifying?" It actually directly sucked the 10,000 years old Xian ice layer that was comparable to the hardest steel into tofu dregs. This is too. Once again, he used the yin-yang escape. As expected, his speed had already returned to normal. He quickly ran around the sword peak once underground. Then, Jun Moxie anxiously jumped out and wiped off his cold sweat. Oh my god, the carved sword peak had directly turned into a paper tiger. Jun Moxie even suspected that he didn't even need to use much strength. As long as he activated the power of earth and pushed with his hand, he would be able to topple this sword peak that was tens of li wide and thousands of zhang tall. When Jun Moxie came out, he realized that the sky outside was already bright. He had actually stayed underground for an entire night. Recalling the strange encounter of this night, Jun Moxie could not help but feel as if he was dreaming. What the hell is going on? What exactly were those colorful heaven and earth spiritual chi? Also, what is that palm-sized thing that was emitting a dazzling white light? It was not that Jun Moxie did not want to enter the Hongjun Pagoda to see what was going on. However, he was surprised to find that the Hongjun Pagoda was silent. No matter how hard he tried, it would not be activated. The door was directly shut, and not a single drop of heaven and earth spiritual energy leaked out. Jun Dashao faintly sensed that this time, the Hongjun Pagoda might have absorbed too much energy, and needed some time to carefully digest it. It was like a person who ate a lot, but usually only ate 2 or 3 steamed buns. Over time, the person would get used to it. Although the amount of food was there, it would not be full for many years. Slowly, the person would get used to this state of semi-starvation. In other words, even the intestines would become thin from hunger. But this time, it was a sudden gluttony. Unexpectedly, the person was full for once. He ate 20 steamed buns in one go. Then, even if he could eat 100 steamed buns at his maximum capacity, he would feel temporarily bloated by these 20 steamed buns, and his stomach would feel very uncomfortable. Jun Moxie reckoned that the Hongjun Pagoda had eaten too much this time, and, "I'm going out now. I wish everyone a happy Christmas Eve. In addition, tomorrow is not only Christmas, but also the birthday of our deputy moderator, Inji. Here, I wish my brother a happy birthday. Also, please don't forget to vote that ring. I really wanted our brothers of ordinary users, brothers and sisters of V users. 1 free vote for each person. We have millions of votes. Why are there so few votes now? Confused. Chapter 705. Therefore, before the Hongjun Pagoda finished digesting the energy of heaven and earth, it would not be able to give him any more help. This is really F***ck. Why did you choose to go on strike at such a critical juncture? Don't you know that the battle will start in an hour? Why do you look like you've never eaten anything good before? You're really a country bumpkin. You'll only stop when you're stuffed to death. Although it's only temporary, this is too ridiculous. Jun Moxie complained and criticized in his mind. The Hongjun Pagoda didn't budge. No matter how much he mumbled, the Hongjun Pagoda ignored him. If the Hongjun Pagoda could speak, it would definitely reply with disdain. F***ck. Isn't this all because you're a useless bastard who starved me to this state? Not only did you not let me eat my fill, you even drew my blood every day. Who could stand that? If you let me eat my fill every day, would I be stuffed at this time? Besides, I didn't eat too much, it's just indigestion. If you don't blame yourself, why are you blaming me? How can you be so shameless? You heartless. Scolding was useless, and hitting was useless. Jun Dashao was at his wits' end and finally accepted it. But this situation was definitely temporary. He could only hope that this guy would quickly finish digesting and come out. He hoped that he wouldn't get a gastric ulcer or perforate because of this. I'll let you take a break for now. F***ck, without Butcher Zhang, do I have to eat pigs with fur? Watch how this young master roams the world with his own abilities. I'll still cause chaos in this world. June Moxie stood there invisibly, feeling the cold wind outside. Looking at the smooth ground at the foot of the mountain, he muttered in his heart, "It's almost dawn, why aren't those guys here yet? What if the Sword Peak collapses ahead of time? Right now, this tofu dregs of a mountain could collapse at any time. Do I have to use my own strength to support it? That would be too tragic." Just as he was worrying, he heard rustling sounds. Dozens of figures cut through the hazy dawn fog like lightning and flew over. Everyone's movement techniques were brilliant, and their footsteps were vigorous. They all flew as fast as they could. It was a group of people from the 3 Holy Lands, and the one leading them was Chu Wu-Qing. His tone was urgent as he urged, "Quick, quick! Quick, 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 over there and over there! Hide yourselves and listen to my orders. As long as I let out a long whistle, you will immediately kill your way out." He had to catch them off guard, cause the greatest number of casualties as soon as possible. Everyone nodded, but no one said anything. Then, there was the sound of clothes flapping in the air, and everyone found a place to hide. One of them even chose the place where June Moxie was standing and carefully crouched down. He stuck his head out and looked around, then retracted his head. This fellow's hiding spot was extremely ingenious. His head was right below June Moxie's crotch. As long as June Moxie stretched out his hand, he could strangle him. He didn't even need to bend over to strangle him to death. Or, if he squatted down, he could sit his butt on his neck. As long as this fellow stretched his neck, he could have an intimate contact with a certain part of his body. Then, they could have a big head bump into a small head. June Moxie was hiding with his legs crossed, but this fellow's head went into his crotch. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Isn't this fellow too good at hiding? Hiding here is really too convenient for me. But I can't do anything to him right now. I can see him, I can touch him, but I can't do anything to him. This made June Moxie very anxious. In fact, he was burning with anxiety. At this moment, this fellow inexplicably turned his body and looked up at the sky. There was a look of satisfaction on his face, and he even used his nose to take 2 deep breaths under June Moxie's crotch. He opened his mouth and took a deep breath. He squinted his eyes and muttered, "This air is really fresh. If I can fart at the right time, you'll immediately feel that it's not fresh." June Moxie thought fiercely. Looking at the wide-open mouth under his crotch, June Moxie suddenly thought, if I suddenly need to pee at this moment, I probably won't waste a single drop. All of it will go into this fellow's stomach. Naturally, if I have diarrhea, this fellow will probably be even more miserable than old eunuch Zhu, resisting the urge to strangle this fellow to death, or the tempting thought of solving the problem of peeing on the spot. June Moxie finally sighed helplessly in his heart and prepared to leave. Before leaving, June Dashao was still unwilling to leave just like that. He activated his qi, and true qi flowed through his entire body. Xian qi went straight through the canopy and down to his dantian, and then to the tiny spleen meridian of the foot. After such a cycle, his buttocks slightly tightened, and he silently farted. As the saying goes, a loud fart doesn't smell, and a smelly fart doesn't make a sound. Under June Dashao's deliberate control, this extremely fragrant smell entered the fellow's mouth with a whoosh, and not a single drop was wasted. Then, with a whoosh, Dashao disappeared without a trace. The fellow below had his mouth wide open like a toad, and was taking in deep breaths. Suddenly, an inexplicable stench rushed towards him, and not a single drop was wasted. It was all sucked into his mouth, and he suddenly choked. His mouth smacked inexplicably, and he immediately vomited. He only felt his stomach churning, and he almost vomited. Chu Wuqing's stern voice came over. Who? Who is it? This fellow covered his nose and said with difficulty, Please calm down, it's me, Cui Ningshi, you son of AB*TCH. Why are you so unpresentable? What are you vomiting for? Did you King eat a fart? What time is this? If you continue to vomit, believe it or not, I will strangle you to death. Chu Wuqing scolded fiercely. Cui Ningshi was a yes-man, and did not dare to make a sound. But he was reminded by Chu Wuqing in his heart. He smacked his lips twice, and could not help but feel disgusted again. Suppressing it, he thought to himself, Isn't it just the smell of a fart? This is really King weird. With such a strong wind, where did this nameless stench come from? He looked around suspiciously, and finally did not find anything. Lowering his body, he continued to hide. Jun Moxie had just left his original position when he saw Mo Xiao Yao's relaxed footsteps, leading the remaining experts of the three Holy Lands over in a grandiose manner. Everyone's faces were solemn, and every one of them was brimming with fighting spirit. Before they even arrived, the strong murderous aura they exuded was already shooting to the heavens, scattering all the clouds in the sky. They're here, they're finally here. They're finally here to die. Jun Moxie's heart was filled with excitement. What's going on? Why aren't they here yet? Mo Xiao Yao turned around when he reached the foot of the sword peak. He asked in confusion, It's already the agreed time, and there's only a quarter of an hour left. Why isn't there any movement from the other party? Is there something strange going on? That's true. They came from afar. Why hasn't there been any movement yet? At the very least, there should be some movement by now. The flying Xian beasts should be densely packed in the sky. Jia Qingyun was also confused. Are they messing with us? Mo Xiao Yao's face darkened, and his eyes revealed a murderous look. He gritted his teeth and said, Let's wait a little longer. We will retreat. They're the ones who missed the appointment, and they're the ones who embarrassed us. All right. Jia Qingyun nodded heavily. Turning his head, he raised his hand and made a questioning gesture. Chu Wuqing tapped his fingers lightly, indicating that everything was in place. Thus, the three venerables walked to the bottom of the sword peak, closed their eyes, and sat down to meditate. Everyone's faces were relaxed and peaceful. To be able to maintain such a calm state of mind before a great battle showed that they had already seen through life and death, and did not care about the impending battle at all. This was the transcendent aura that only experts had. Jun Moxie's side was already in full preparation. This was a crucial moment. Everything had to be fast, so fast that there was no time to react. With a swoosh, he entered the ground and released all the power of earth that he had accumulated during this period of idleness. Then, he released the power of water in all directions at the same time, releasing all the power that was originally stored here. Like a flash of lightning, he arrived at the center of the ground, and the blood of yellow flame turned into a sword light that resembled a divine dragon. With just one slash, the 10,000-year-old layer of Xian ice was completely destroyed. Then, he rose straight up, using the highest speed of the yin-yang escape, shooting upwards like a shooting star. In front of the sword peak, Mo Xiao Yao suddenly opened his eyes and looked at Jia Qingyun. Old Jia, do you feel any movement? Jia Qingyun also frowned in confusion and said, There seems to be some movement underground, but it's hard to put into words. Perhaps there are some small avalanches in the distance. Last night, in order to boost morale, we shook the surroundings with our voices, triggering avalanches in some places. Perhaps the movement below is related to that. Mo Xiao Yao nodded in agreement. Turning around to look at the sword peak, he couldn't help but sigh. This sword peak really lives up to its name. As expected, it really looks like a sword. A gigantic sword. I wonder what kind of godly power is required to be able to wield such a heaven-shaking sword? Jia Qingyun laughed and said, Brother Mo, this is just a mountain after all. But it really looks too much like a sword. Mo Xiao Yao chuckled. Suddenly, his expression changed as he looked up at the peak of the sword peak. Frowning, he asked suspiciously, "Why does it look a little slanted? Are my eyes playing tricks on me?" Jia Qingyan laughed and said, "Brother Mo, let me reiterate once more. This is a huge mountain. How can it really be as straight as a sword?" Just as he finished his sentence and before he could finish laughing, the sky above everyone's heads suddenly darkened. Large patches of snowflakes suddenly filled the sky. This weather is really weird. The sun is so bright, and there are no clouds in the sky at all. Why did it suddenly start snowing so quickly and so heavily? Xiao Tianya sighed. Could this be the unique weather of Blizzard Silver City? Everyone laughed. If it wasn't like this, would it still be called Blizzard Silver City? That's true. Xiao Tianya also laughed and said, "But this scenery is really unique." Before he could finish his sentence, there was a sudden rumbling sound from the ground. The sound was heavy, and the ground seemed to be shaking. Chapter 706. At this point, everyone was truly shocked. They stood up one after another and looked around at each other in dismay. Everyone's faces were filled with bewilderment and uncertainty. At this moment, the ground trembled even more violently, and the sound of the ground rumbling also became one. In a split second, the mountains and the earth shook. "What's going on? What's going on?" Everyone gathered together and asked one after another. Mo Xiao Yao's eyes narrowed as he looked at the sword peak. He suddenly roared, his eyes almost popping out of their socket. "Everyone, run! This sword peak is going to collapse." Because he suddenly discovered that the sword edge was falling towards him and the others at an extremely slow speed. It was like a giant that was slowly falling down. Although it was slow, it was clearly visible. But it was too late, everything was too late. A loud roar suddenly rang out in the sky. The roar pierced through the clouds and mist, tearing through the blue dome of heaven. A voice that was clear and melodious like a sword shook the heavens, shook the earth, and shook the vast history that had never existed since ancient times. It was long and drawn out, yet vigorous, and it reverberated throughout the mountains and valleys as if it was announcing to the entire world. The Xian beasts are all out of Tianfa, and the sword peak will collapse. The oath is broken, and only I, Dongfang, will remain. The majestic voice reverberated between heaven and earth for a long time. At this moment, it even suppressed the chaotic sounds of the earth shattering. As Mo Xiao Yao's pupils constricted, he saw a small white figure suddenly fly out from the center of the sword peak with a shrill roar. In the blink of an eye, it flew back like a shooting star. A bright sword light filled the sky. It was as if a blazing sun had suddenly appeared in the sky. Flying towards the sword peak. Crashing. Crashing. This crashing was filled with an unwavering determination. Together with the slowly collapsing mountain peak, it gave off a frightening feeling as if the end of the world had arrived. It was as if the whole world had fallen into an absolute frenzy, but at the same time, it was absolutely still. The entire world was roaring, but Mo Xiao Yao's ears did not seem to hear any sound. His entire soul was stunned by the sudden appearance of the figure and the sword light. This ray of light was like the wrath of a god that could destroy the universe. A heavy sense of danger weighed heavily on everyone's hearts. A loud roar followed, like a sudden clap of thunder in the clear sky. Collapse! Sword peak! With a violent shudder, Mo Xiao Yao's soul finally returned to his body. His eyes were bloodshot as he screamed for his life. His voice had already changed in pitch, becoming sharp and shrill. "Everyone, run!" With a loud bang, the white figure above crashed heavily into the sword peak, which was already in danger of collapsing. It became the last straw that broke the camel's back. In the middle of the sword peak, a huge mushroom cloud suddenly soared into the sky. Countless pieces of rubble flew out, growing from small to large. In the blink of an eye, a fly flying in the air had turned into a huge meteor. The slowly falling Jian Feng suddenly accelerated. It was like a tractor that had suddenly turned into a Ferrari that was running at full speed. With the absolute speed of the wind and lightning, it pressed down mercilessly on the group of black dots below, as if it was swatting a mosquito with Mount Tai. This white figure was Jun Moxie. When he reached the waist of the mountain, he continued to move. After bouncing out, he first swung his sword wildly. His arms seemed to have turned into a hurricane. The blood of yellow flame seemed to have come alive with his agitation. The sword chi was like the roar of a dragon and a tiger, shaking the heavens. In the blink of an eye, millions of sword chi struck the gigantic body of the sword peak. Then, he kept his sword and attacked crazily with his palms. In the time it took to take a breath, hundreds of palms had landed heavily on the same spot. It was like hundreds of hammers that weighed tens of thousands of kilograms had landed heavily on the same spot. This was the fury of thunder. This was the power of heaven and earth. Jun Moxie was now a true second-level venerable, coupled with the power of the art of unlocking heaven's fortune. Even if the bottom of the sword peak was completely undamaged, he could still blast a huge hole. What's more, the bottom of the sword peak had already been emptied by him. He had completely transformed into a tofu dregs. What's more, the area where the sword peak was facing Mo Xiao Yao and the rest had already had a bottomless hole created by Jun Moxie, a few 100 feet wide. Under the combined efforts of everyone, the sword peak that was slowly toppling suddenly sped up, and with a boom sound it came crashing down. Countless boulders that looked like small hills tumbled down from the peak of the mountain like meteors. Like lightning, they smashed onto the ground with earth-shattering force. On the ground, Mo Xiao Yao and the rest only felt that the originally blue sky had suddenly darkened. The sword peak was thousands of feet tall. Once it fell, the area it covered would naturally be vast and boundless. Furthermore, as it disintegrated, the area it could cover had almost doubled. Mo Xiao Yao and the rest were originally right next to the sword peak. Now that they saw the speed at which the sword peak was collapsing, even if these 500 people had the cultivation of a saint, they would definitely not be able to fly out of this area of death before the sword peak collapsed. Facing such a shocking scene, the 500-plus people from the 3 Holy Lands all ran for their lives. Regardless of whether it was those who came to ambush or those who came later, all of them were like a flock of ducks being chased by someone, running for their lives like a swarm of bees. At this critical juncture, how could they still care about their mission or principles? Escaping with their lives was the most important thing. Everyone's faces were filled with panic, only the despair of being shrouded by the shadow of death. The thought of being sent to the Yellow Springs was already in everyone's mind. Even though everyone knew that all their struggles were futile, they still tried their best to move their legs. Humans always cherish their lives. Even in the face of a hopeless situation, they still had to struggle with all their might. Even if they could live for another minute or even a second, it was still good at this point. What self-restraint, what demeanor, what status, what face, all of it had long been thrown out the window. All of them hated their parents for not giving them 2 more legs. Facing such a terrifying force of natural collapse, it was not something a human could withstand. No matter how high one's cultivation was, one might not have the confidence to survive such a calamity. Mo Xiaoyao, Jia Qingyun, and the rest were so anxious that they almost vomited blood. To think that they were still tricked, and tricked so badly. Despicable. Shameless. Scoundrel. Despicable. Even though they did not know how a human could shake such a huge mountain that had existed since ancient times, there was no such thing as a coincidence. The appointed time had already passed, but the other party was nowhere to be seen. The people who had arrived on time had met with such an unbelievable and fatal disaster, and there was also that strange white shadow. All of these pointed to the fact that this was a death trap set by the other party. This conclusion was definitely valid. They had suffered a huge loss this time. As they ran with all their might, the two of them were filled with so much regret that they almost vomited blood. They blamed themselves. They clearly knew that the other party did not have good intentions when they challenged them, but they still relied on their own strength and came forward without any qualms. This was like sticking out their necks and crawling under the other party's guillotine, waiting to be slaughtered. Emo Xiao Yao was so depressed that he almost vomited blood. He had always prided himself on his intellect, but he had failed miserably in this small ditch. He was even toyed with by the other party without realizing it. When he arrived here and saw that the other party did not arrive on time, he had already sensed that something was wrong and should have retreated immediately. But even though he had sensed that something was wrong, he did not take it to heart. But wasn't this turn of events a little too ridiculous? How can you blame me for this? Who the hell would have thought that a mountain would collapse just like that? What kind of method was needed to cause such a terrifying disaster? Was he dreaming? Even if it was a nightmare, it couldn't be so evil. Emo Xiao Yao almost wanted to cry. Just what kind of bad luck was this? Normally, why would there be a need for venerables to come out and support them? Any supreme expert would be able to sweep through the world and reign supreme. But right now, he had brought a group of venerables and superior supremes out, only to end up in such a miserable state? He had originally planned to wipe out Tian Fa and the Jun family as quickly as possible, then return to the mountain to prepare for the upcoming battle. But who would have thought that they would be suppressed by the other party instead? Was he really going to be turned into a meat patty this time? Looking up at the approaching mountain peak, Emo Xiao Yao finally cried out. From the looks of it, becoming a meat patty was just an extravagant hope. I'm probably going to be smashed into pieces and turned into minced meat. I don't even need to mince the fillings to make dumplings anymore. I can use the ready-made ones. As a fourth-level venerable, dying like this is too humiliating. I can't accept it. Jia Qinyun, who was in the midst of running, suddenly came to a halt and roared like a madman, "Everyone, don't run! The range of this mountain is too wide, and it's impossible for us to escape before the mountain comes crashing down on us. Everyone, gather in one place and gather all your strength to resist this great calamity. Only by finding a path of survival in the midst of death will we have the slightest chance of survival. If we continue to run in all directions, everyone will truly die without a burial." His voice was fast and anxious, and just hearing his voice made one feel like they were about to vomit blood. Emo Xiao Yao immediately came to his senses and also roared at the top of his lungs. These two were already at the fourth level of the venerable realm, and their Xian cultivation was extremely profound. Even though it was chaotic, their voices still shook the surroundings and were heard by everyone. But hearing it was one thing, being able to follow it was another thing. In an instant 200 to 300 people quickly flew towards the two of them, but the remaining people were still running around like headless flies, minding their own business. This was especially so for those who were running at the front. Their Qinggong cultivation was higher, and they felt that they could escape with their own Qinggong. But at this moment of life and death, who cared about the Venerable's command? They only treated it as Emo Xiao Yao and Jia Qinyun's bullsh *t, turning a deaf ear to them and running with all their might. There were also many who were so shocked by this turn of events that they couldn't react even if they heard it, and the next moment with a loud boom, the entire ground shook a few times, and the first boulder finally smashed onto the ground. "Haha, it's Dad's birthday tomorrow. I'll go back a night earlier to give my blessings to the old man." Those who are observant will notice that Ling Tian has also taken leave this month. But last year it was the 22nd of the 11th month, and this year it's the 21st of the 11th month. This is something we discussed together. Because the birthday is on a Monday and tomorrow is a Sunday, everyone is free. We might as well celebrate it a day earlier. My cousins from my uncles, aunts, and aunts will all be back, as well as my cousins from my main family. There will also be more than 100 little radishes. It should be very lively. Chapter 707. Boulders continued to fall from the sky, but the rocks and snow on the ground flew upwards due to the violent tremors of the mountain. It was as if thousands of rocket launchers were firing at them, creating countless explosions on the ground. It was a spectacular sight. Countless boulders rained down with earth-shattering power. Behind the boulders, the entire mountain came crashing down, covering the entire sky. It covered the entire sky, and in the eyes of these people, the world seemed to suddenly turn dark and gloomy. Mo Xiao Yao's hair fluttered in the wind. With a roar, he staggered and leaped into the air. His long sword glowed with a blinding brilliance as he viciously stabbed at a boulder that was pressing down on him. With a loud boom, the boulder actually exploded and turned into dust that filled the sky. In that instant, Mo Xiao Yao continued to stab at it with the same method for a dozen times, and the boulders also disappeared without a trace. Seeing that this method was effective, everyone understood. Since there was a chance of survival, no one was willing to sit and wait for death. One by one, they brandished their sabers and swords, all of them leaped up. At this moment, a huge amount of energy exploded out. It was as if there were countless fireworks exploding in the sky, incomparably brilliant. These superior supreme experts, who were invincible, were now engaged in a life-and-death battle with these lifeless boulders. Everyone's eyes were bloodshot. Everyone, gather together. Remember to preserve some of your strength when you attack. In addition, 50 people, attack the ground with all your might. We must create a huge pit before the mountain falls, the deeper the better, the bigger the better. Use all your strength. When the mountain falls, everyone throw out their long swords and weapons and immediately rush into the pit, using all your strength to attack. Then, everyone immediately huddle together, holding hands to form a protective circle. Only by resisting the pressure of the mountain together can we have a chance of survival. Through life and death together, we will face death together. Mo Xiao Yao shouted at the top of his lungs, his voice fast and anxious. Such a long speech was finished in one breath. It was rare that he could still enunciate his words so clearly amidst the rumbling sounds of the falling rocks and the loud explosions. Even with his profound Xian Qi, his roar became extremely weak. However, there were still many people who heard it. At least, the people who gathered around him heard it. Mo Xiao Yao had just finished speaking when he, along with Jia Qingyun, Xiao Tianye, Chu Wuqing, and the rest, attacked the ground with all their might. The four venerables attacked at the same time with their full strength. Their power was astonishing, and even the solid ground was unable to resist. With a loud boom, a large pit several feet deep appeared on the ground. It had a circumference of over 100 zhang. The four venerables had agreed to join hands in this moment. The only difference was that the target was not Tian Fa's Xian beasts, nor was it the Jun family. Instead, it was the ground beneath their feet. Immediately, another 50 people rushed over and attacked the ground with all their might. These people were all superior supreme experts. Moreover, the hardest surface of the ground had already been broken by the four venerables. This group of people attacked with all their might, and in an instant, the huge hole had sunk 100 feet deeper into the ground. Mo Xiao Yao let out a long howl, his hair and beard fluttering. The four venerables attacked together again. Mud, sand, and ice shot up several hundred zhang into the sky, and the pit sank another 100 zhang deeper. After these three attacks, the huge mountain was about to hit them. Shrill screams could be heard from afar. They came from the experts who had separated themselves from the group. Whether it was those who had collapsed due to fear or those who had escaped due to their superior Qinggong, none of them were spared. All of them were smashed by the rain of falling rocks. As long as they let out such a scream, it was obvious that they would be crushed to death by the boulders in the next moment, turning into a pile of minced meat. There's no time to attack anymore. Everyone, get in here quickly. Quick! Emo Xiao Yao roared. A huge rock smashed into his head, but it was smashed into pieces. What a hard skull! He was the first to fly into the ground, spitting out a mouthful of fresh blood. Then, he struck out with his palms tens of times. Countless lights flashed at the same time. Swords and sabers flew out of his hands, slashing towards the mountain that was already within reach. These were the most beloved weapons of these experts, who had lived for hundreds of years. They had accompanied them for their entire lives, and could be said to be their closest companions and comrades. They were also the weapons that they loved more than their own lives. Not a single one of them was not a rare treasure. Not a single one of them was not a divine weapon. But at this moment, no one was stingy. There was not even a moment of hesitation. At the moment of life and death, no one cared about these worldly possessions anymore. Then, one by one, figures leaped into the pit, their faces pale and lips pale. The experts who were almost out of energy leaped into the pit like rabbits. Even though they were almost out of energy, they could still muster up a small amount of energy and attack downwards. This huge hole was their only hope of survival. The deeper the hole was, the higher the chance of survival for everyone was. Otherwise, if a huge mountain came crashing down, even the vibrations from the impact of the impact would be enough to kill them. Or, if it smashed into the ground, the rocks would gather in the middle and squeeze everyone to death. No matter what level the experts were at, they were all like ants in front of this kind of natural power. At this moment, everyone was only thinking about how to escape from the pressure of the huge mountain. As for how to escape from the underground, no one had the time to think about it. They didn't have the time to think about it. They would think about it if they could survive this moment. Just at the moment when the last figure also entered the big hole, the gigantic mountain finally fell down. It smashed solidly into the ground. Boom! An unprecedentedly violent sound finally rang out. At this moment, the ground didn't tremble. Instead, the entire ground jumped up. Yes, it jumped up. The mountain rocks that were sent flying even flew up into the sky for thousands of feet, like shooting stars, and landed somewhere unknown. Even the huge building of Blizzard Silver City in the distance was lifted off the ground by this huge change, and heavily jumped up. There were no other words to describe it. The entire city seemed to have suddenly jumped like a living person. Even the solid foundation was lifted off the ground at that moment. Moreover, it was at least 3 feet off the ground. This kind of strange jump could only be described as a heavy jump. And it was done in a standing high jump. In Qinggong terms, it was plucking green onions from dry land. However, I believe that none of you have seen such a high difficulty of plucking green onions from dry land. Before then, the Blizzard Silver City fell back to the ground with a bang. It was like a big man who could get drunk after drinking 1 or 2 bottles of white wine, but had suddenly drunk 1 gin. Dizzy and dizzy. He staggered a few times like a roly-poly doll before finally falling head first onto the ground. All the buildings in the Silver Blizzard City collapsed at the same time. Waves of panicked screams rang out. Groans and groans could be heard everywhere. What followed was a miraculous scene that was rarely seen even in 1 billion years. The 7 mountain peaks surrounding Blizzard Silver City started to shake violently at the same time. After that, the layers of snow and ice on the top of the 7 mountains also flew away at the same time, revealing the bare mountain tops. The yellowish-brown mountain tops that hadn't been revealed for 10,000 years were revealed. The layer of snow and ice that suddenly flew up stayed in the air for a while, like a pointy hat, hollow in the middle, like a big mushroom with a pointy head. It was as if 7 bald heads had taken off their hats at the same time, revealing the mountain tops. This spectacular spectacle made Jun Dashao, who had been hiding in the air to avoid the disaster, exclaim in satisfaction. His eyes almost popped out of his sockets as he blurted out, "It's really King spectacular. I'm really lucky today. If I had brought a camera to take a picture of this and sell it on Earth, even my grandson would be able to retire. What a pity!" He hadn't even finished marveling when an even more spectacular and indescribable scene appeared. Although the hats of the 7 mountain peaks flew up at the same time, they fell down at different times. After all, hats were of different sizes. But the 7 hats didn't have much difference when they fell apart. They all gave rise to avalanches of different scales. And they were all huge avalanches. An unprecedented avalanche. June Moxie was absolutely willing to bet. Even if the entire avalanche of Mount Everest were to happen, it wouldn't be as powerful as this one. Countless waves of snow rose into the air, directly flying hundreds of thousands of zhang into the sky, covering the sun, moon, and stars. This kind of scene, even if there were 7 stars, no. Even if there were 7 or 70,000 atomic bombs exploding at the same time, they might not be able to create such a terrifying effect. Rumble, 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 rumble. Following this series of avalanches, all the mountain peaks, whether near or far, responded to it. All the mountains were like drunk people who had taken ecstasy and were dancing disco along with the explosive music in a crazy disco hall. They were shaking their heads, wagging their tails, twisting their waists, and swaying their buttocks. If the layers of snow and ice on the mountains were clothes, then these countless mountains were dancing a flirtatious striptease at the same time. It was as if they were fighting to be the first to trigger the avalanches and landslides of their respective mountains. It was as if these thousands of mountains and valleys were carrying out a crazy competition. Let's see whose avalanche was more powerful. Let's see whose avalanche was more powerful. Let's see whose avalanche splashed the highest. Let's see whose avalanche looked the best. Let's see whose avalanche had a wider range. The east wind blew and the war drums beat. Everyone was a mountain that had been piled up for thousands of years. Who was afraid of whom in an avalanche competition? This avalanche competition lasted for a full hour before it finally stopped. The ground was still shaking. After a long time, it finally quieted down. The entire snow-capped mountain region had completely changed. Thousands of mountains and valleys had turned into a flat plain. This mountain range that was originally filled with thousands of towering peaks had now become a boundless plain that flickered with silvery light. All the mountain peaks had been reduced to half their original height. Only small mushroom-shaped heads had emerged from the snow. They were completely bare. There wasn't a single bit of snow left on them. It was extremely dazzling. This was the accumulation of snow and ice for tens of thousands of years. It had fallen off in an extremely short period of time. What a huge amount of snow and ice! It was no wonder that almost all the valleys had been filled up. Even those bottomless cliffs and bottomless abysses had been filled to the brim. It was a flat plain. At this moment, the snow-capped mountain seemed even flatter than the plain. Awesome! This is so addicting. June Moxie and June Dashao were in the only safe place in the sky. They were watching the show in a carefree manner. They couldn't help but compose a poem on the spot. They shook their heads and said, "The scenery of the Northern Kingdom. 1,000 miles of ice. 10,000 miles of drifting snow. Looking at the inside and outside of the Silver City, there's only a vast expanse. Up and down the snow-capped mountain, there's a torrential flood. Baldy Shan Wu tosses up his big hat. He wants to compete with the heavens. Su Qing's sun watches fresh blood flow. It's exceptionally enchanting." Chapter 708. Good poem. This is a very good poem. June Mo Xie smacked his lips twice. He then shook his head and sighed in admiration. He was very satisfied with his unprecedented literary talent. This terrorist had single-handedly caused the collapse of the Sword Peak and caused an unprecedented avalanche. He had also completely destroyed the beautiful scenery of the entire snow mountain. He had caused the Silver Blizzard City, which had shaken the entire world, to be reduced to rubble in a snap of his fingers. Yet, he was still complacent. What kind of person was this? Wasn't he too? In the distance, the snow bulged and squirmed. With a schwa sound, a black head popped out. In the next moment, another head popped out. In the end, more than 100 people popped out. All of them had pale faces and blood dripped from the corners of their mouth. Their expressions were miserable. These were the people from the Shao family. They had been escorted here by 10 superior supremes from the 3 Holy Lands to ambush the Jun family and the Xian beast. But because they were too close, they were caught up in the shock wave. Although they weren't crushed to death, the intense tremors caused many of them to die because they were weaker than the others. There were more than 300 people in this ambush group. 70 to 80 of them were killed on the spot by the flying boulders. Even if they were lucky enough to survive, almost all of them were injured. Then, 40 to 50 of them were killed by the aftershock. Now, the survivors were actually less than half of the total number, and many of them were disabled. There were also many who were seriously injured and buried under the avalanche. They were still struggling for their lives. But now that they had finally climbed up, they were all injured internally. How could they have the strength to save them? So those people were as good as dead. In any case, they were definitely not going to survive. The strongest person in the Shao family, Shao Xingyun, crawled out shakily. Looking at the tragic scene in front of him, his face was full of shock. But when he looked back at the Blizzard Silver City, he suddenly burst into laughter and shouted, "Ha ha ha! Good! If the Shao family can't get it, does that mean that the Han family can keep it forever? Haha, it's finally destroyed. Good. What a great destruction. Now that everyone had split up, that was just right. F***ck your Blizzard Silver City. Ha 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 ha. This feels so good." He was shouting and yelling, jumping and roaring like a madman. The others who came out were bleeding from their ears. Their eardrums had been damaged, so they couldn't hear what he was shouting. They could only watch as he jumped around like a madman, his mouth opening and closing as if he was watching a pantomime. In fact, even Shao Xingyun himself couldn't hear what he was shouting. However, he seemed to have lost his mind as he crazily shouted and screamed. This could be said to be an old man who had plotted his entire life and was determined to seize the throne. He could be said to be an ambitious and ruthless person of his generation. If he hadn't met Jun Moxie, he was very likely to succeed. But his luck was too bad. He just had to meet such a fated fiend. First, Jun Dashao crippled his grandson, crippled his great-grandson, and schemed against his own younger brother. Now, under Jun Moxie's scheme, he killed 2 of his own younger brothers. Moreover, when he was so close to success, his life's work was ruined by a sudden reversal. The mental and physical blows came one after another, and he could no longer bear it. Such a series of blows directly caused him to collapse. Now that he saw the Blizzard Silver City that he had worked so hard for turn into a pile of rubble, he finally couldn't help but lose his mind. No one else had interfered. All his hard work, all his loved ones, all his dreams and goals, as well as all his plots and schemes, had been destroyed by one person, Jun Mo Xie. Shao Xingyun was finished. The current Shao Xingyun was no longer the experienced and circumspect schemer of the past. His entire life's spiritual support had completely collapsed. He was thoroughly finished. Looking at Shao Xingyun, who was laughing and jumping, without the slightest demeanor of a Xian Qi expert, the superior supreme experts of the 3 Holy Lands, who were in charge of monitoring the Shao family, looked at each other silently and shook their heads. Looking at the group of people who looked like they had been struck dumb by lightning, they sighed. If an enemy came now, how could they fight in their current state? Even if they forced themselves to fight, How much of their fighting strength would they be able to display? The leader of the experts of the three holy lands waved his hand and signaled the group of people to circulate their xian qi and make use of the time they had to recover as soon as possible. Even if they couldn't return to their peak condition, they had to at least recover their hearing. This feeling of being almost deaf was too uncomfortable. After an unknown period of time, the 10 superior supreme experts of the three holy lands, who were more proficient in xian qi, recovered first. Although their heads were still buzzing, they could at least hear each other's voices. "Leave 2 people here." The others quickly went over to take a look. "I don't know how the venerables are, I hope they—" The 8 of them flew over together like meteors. With one look, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. On the ground, there was a mountain range that seemed to have appeared out of thin air. It was hundreds of feet high, with rugged boulders. Occasionally, there was a crashing sound. It was the sound of some boulders that had not completely come to a stop and were still swaying. Beside the mountain range, there were a few huge cracks, dark and bottomless. Obviously, they had appeared because of the violent tremors. There was not a single person nearby. All the experts of the three holy lands had disappeared. The 8 of them stood in front of the huge mountain, dumbfounded. Looking at this huge mountain, everyone felt a chill down their spines. The situation in front of them was not optimistic. Without a doubt, Emo, Xiao Yao and the rest should be trapped underneath. But judging from the situation in front of them, the 8 of them did not have much hope that Emo, Xiao Yao and the rest were still alive. One of them was coincidentally the one who was almost crushed to death by the landslide when he was chasing after Chu Chihuan. Thinking back to that time, the force of the landslide was at least 100 times weaker than this one, and he was still smashed into such a state. Although Emo, Xiao Yao and the rest were much stronger than him, they might not be 100 times stronger than him. This was really a tough situation. This was not something that any human could resist. No matter how strong a person was, in front of the might of heaven and earth, it was just a fart. As for the outcome this time, there was basically no need to think about it. In short, it was not optimistic. The 8 of them stood there in a daze, sweating profusely. They did not dare to believe that such a strong force, a total of 500 superior supreme and 4 venerables, could be wiped out in the blink of an eye. This was too unbelievable. Suddenly, there was a faint vibration sound coming from underground, as if someone was swinging a big hammer and smashing the ground fiercely. The venerables are not dead yet. The 8 of them could not help but cry out in surprise at this sudden change. They all crouched on the ground and stuck their ears to the ground, carefully listening to where the faint sound came from so that they could provide support from outside. Everyone knew that even if Emo, Xiao Yao and the rest were lucky enough to survive, the air down there was definitely too thin. If they stayed for too long, they would probably suffocate to death. This kind of rescue work naturally had to be done as soon as possible. Even if it took a blink of an eye, someone would still die. After listening carefully for a while, the 8 of them were speechless at the same time. The faint knocking sound was obviously coming from the center of the mountain. If they wanted to save them, they would probably have to move these huge rocks away before they could have a chance. Looking at the mountain, the 8 of them felt their scalps go numb. Even the smaller rocks were probably a few thousand caddies in weight. As for the bigger ones, even 1,000,000 caddy scale could break them. From the crack, dig in diagonally. One of the more quick-witted of them suggested. The other 7 were overjoyed. This way, even though the distance would be further, the relative speed would be much faster. Without further delay, the 8 of them quickly began to move. They chose a spot a few hundred feet below the crack and blasted a hole big enough for a person to stand in. Then, they began to dig. The 8 of them divided the work without any discussion. 4 of them dug the rocks, and the other 4 moved them out. These 8 people were all superior supreme experts. With their full strength, and the fact that they were at the crack, and the soil and rocks around the crack were soft, their progress was quite fast. As both sides were used at the same time, the faint knocking sounds became more and more distinct. But he could also sense that the movements on the other side were also becoming weaker, as if the person on the other side was gradually exhausting all his strength. The 8 of them worked frantically, trying their best to create the largest and most penetrating movement possible so that the other side would know that they were thinking of a solution. At this moment, the sky suddenly darkened. It was pitch black, without a single ray of light. It was only early in the morning, and the sky had just brightened. The sun hadn't even risen yet, so why was the sky already dark? The 8 of them were puzzled. Suddenly, they heard an extremely despairing scream from the side. Very quickly, one of the people in charge of transporting the goods ran out to take a look. He let out a loud cry and ran back in with a pale face. His entire body trembled as he stuttered, "Tion, Tion, 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 Tion. What do you mean by the sky is over?" Of the remaining 7 people, other than the 4 who were still digging, the rest all went to the entrance of the cave to take a look. After looking, 3 of them sat on the ground and moaned as if they were grieving the death of their parent. "It's over, it's over." In the distant horizon, they saw a huge flock of cranes. There were hundreds of them, neatly lined up, flying over from the direction of the sunrise. So what if it was a flock of cranes? Would these superior supreme experts be afraid of cranes? The problem was that those cranes were obviously 9th-level Xian beasts. Every one of them had the vigor of a dragon and the ferocity of a tiger. Their wings were 7 to 8 feet wide, and their beaks were like sharp blades. Their thick claws were full of strength, and the tips of their claws glowed with a cold light. Their huge red eyes were filled with ferocity and cruelty. Their eyes shone with a bloodthirsty light. These 8 superior supreme experts had never seen so many 9th-level Xian beasts in action before. With such a lineup, they would probably be torn to shreds in a few moves. But this wasn't the end. The most terrifying thing was still to come. On the backs of these 9th-level Xian beasts, there were burly men. Their beards were long and bristling, and their eyes were filled with a wild and untamed glint. Their faces were filled with an expression of wanting to devour someone. The 8 of them could tell with one look that these were not ordinary humans. They were clearly Xian beasts that had successfully taken human form. "I'll report you to the sun." Why are there so many? This isn't considered vulgar, right? I don't believe that even you, the sun, would report me. I just returned from my birthday. And, with my magnanimous alcohol tolerance, I naturally won't get drunk. These few days, the updates have been a little slow. Everyone can see that the plot of Blizzard's Silver City is about to end. Next will be the climax of the war for seizing the heavens. And this is also the biggest headache for me. Everyone naturally knows the reason. I'm thinking about how to not change the original taste, but also not involve those motherf asterisk curs. So I've been having a splitting headache for this period of time. If you don't write a book, you won't know this kind of feeling. Perhaps all the authors know what it's like to suddenly have a change to the climax of a year's plot that has been planned for a year. It's so uncomfortable that I want to bang my head against the wall and pull out my hair. Really. Looking at the outline of the war for seizing the heavens that had been set previously, an inexplicable gloominess rushed straight to my head, so I need to think about it carefully. I sighed, indicating that I need help. I hope that everyone can leave suggestions in the book review section. I will carefully look through them one by one. This is a big hurdle. I hope that we can get through it together. And, regarding that matter, everyone should not scold or talk about it. Just let it go. Many of my brothers have been banned, and this makes me feel very uncomfortable. We can ignore the wind and rain. We can also get through the difficulties. Chapter 709. Read more. One group from Dongfang, one from the north, one from the south, one from the west, and one from all directions. Covering the sky and earth. Xian Beast. The strength of the Jun family. With a loud bang, a burst of oppressive aura pressed down, and the last group of people descended majestically from the sky. It blocked the last ray of light, but it also blocked the last path of escape. Good heavens! The 8 people who were in the middle of digging stared blankly at the spectacular sight in the sky. Suddenly, they felt a wave of cold air pouring down from the top of their heads all the way to their buttocks. Thump! Thump! One by one, they sat down on the ground, forgetting their manners. At this moment, all 8 of them had the impulse to remove the Xian Qi protection from their bodies, and then bang their heads against this stone wall to death. You still want to fight? Fight my ass. With the other party's lineup and the few of us, we can't even be considered a dish, right? The other side's army was well organized, and their strength was complete. Everyone was conserving their strength, their essence, qi, and spirit were at their peak. They were surrounding them from all directions, from the sky to the ground. What about them? The only one with the greatest fighting strength was still buried underground. Even if they could successfully climb out from the bottom of the mountain, they would definitely be exhausted and would have to face the enemy's huge army head-on. There was not the slightest bit of hope. She was a widow who had gone through menopause, and her only son had died. There was no hope at all. Just as the 8 supreme masters and above fell into extreme despair, they suddenly heard a boom from the ground. Previously, with the cooperation of the inside and outside, the resistance of the ground was greatly reduced. Although these 8 people had lost their confidence and stopped moving, the people inside were using their last bit of strength to try and escape. Under the eruption of the potential of the will to survive, the passage was finally opened. Mo Xiao Yao and the rest were finally able to see the light of day again. However, when the 8 experts outside saw the current situation of Mo Xiao Yao and the rest, not a single one of them had a happy expression on their faces. If they had broken out of the ground a moment ago, it would have undoubtedly brought them great hope. But at this moment, not only did despair return, it was even gloomier than before. No matter how high your status was in the past, how strong your strength was, how glorious your battle achievements were, right now you're just a person in distress, a complete loser, a weakling. Faced with such a vile situation, and with everyone already injured to the point where it was unbearable to look at, what was the difference between coming out and not coming out? What was the point? If they were buried here, they might be able to leave behind the last bit of dignity. But once they came out, they would only be humiliated. Sooner or later, only death would await them. There was no doubt about this. The unfettered venerable Mo Xiao Yao was covered in blood, with blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. There were many bruises on his face, and some of his hair was also matted with blood. His clothes were in tatters, and it was too horrible to look at. He didn't have the slightest bit of the aura of the past. But in comparison, the unfettered venerable Mo Xiao Yao was the one with the lightest injuries. Following that, more than 100 people came out one after another. Without exception, all of them were riddled with injuries. Their faces were pale, and they were panting heavily. There were even some who crawled out with broken arms and legs. These people's luck was actually not bad, forcefully creating a huge hole in the ground to take shelter. Finally, they were able to escape from such a shocking calamity. If they didn't have some luck, it would have been impossible for them to do so. Perhaps it was because escaping from such a terrifying situation had exhausted their remaining luck. Only after all of them crawled in did they realize that there was actually a layer of 10,000-year-old Xian ice below. Even if it was a complete boulder, it wouldn't cause these venerables and supremes to feel such despair. But the Xian ice was much harder than a boulder. This also caused them to spend far too much time down there. They almost suffocated to death. Furthermore, the previous round of resistance, followed by the impact of the tremors, and then the seemingly endless pressure, had caused these few hundred top-notch experts, who were rare in this world, to use up about 70 to 80% of their profound strength. It was simply too tragic. Of the 300 people who went in earlier, less than 100 were able to come out alive. The others were all buried in the ground. Even those who had managed to get out were all injured and exhausted. Mo Xiaoyao, Jia Qingyun, and Xiao Tianya had just appeared at the entrance of the cave and breathed in the fresh air. Their spirits were reinvigorated, but in the next moment, their expressions changed drastically, and they froze like wooden chickens. Right now, as fourth-level venerables, they were barely able to maintain 20% of their original combat strength. However, the other party had been conserving their strength and honing their strength, and was now bearing down on them. There was no suspense in this battle at all. There was no need to fight at all. Forcefully making a move would only be looking for humiliation. Under Jun Wu Yi's command, Mei Shuiyan and the rest arrived at the appointed time according to Jun Mo Xie's instructions. However, when the army was halfway there, the sword peak suddenly collapsed. 80% of the flying Xian beasts were so scared that they had to land. After that, they were almost buried alive by the avalanche. Fortunately, they were too far away and only encountered a very small-scale avalanche. There was no greater danger. With everyone's strength, they could naturally survive without any losses. But even so, everyone was already pale with fright, their legs trembling. Mei Shuyan and Chu Chihuan both understood clearly in their hearts. The sword peak had really collapsed. The Dongfang family's oath had been broken. The oath that could never be broken had really been broken. Other than Jun Moxie, this heaven-defying existence, there was no one else in this world who had this ability. Thinking about it and even knowing about it was one thing, but seeing it with their own eyes was another matter. When everyone saw the huge mountain lying on the ground with their own eyes, even though they were already mentally prepared, they still couldn't help but feel a chill run down their spines. In front of this huge mountain that had collapsed, they felt as insignificant as ants. And the fact that Jun Moxie was actually able to make this huge mountain collapse made them feel especially incredulous. Even though they had already seen Jun Dashao's various miracles, they still found it hard to let go of today's miracle. How could this kind of heaven and earth change be compared to humans? After the tremor, Jun Wui immediately changed his previous arrangements. All the Xian beasts and experts were reorganized into 7 groups, forming a tight encirclement that flew over from all directions. Combined with Jun Moxie's letter of challenge, Jun Wui's instantaneous change of strategy was seamless and complemented each other perfectly. Under such a tight encirclement, no one would be able to escape from the encirclement of the Xian beasts. After everyone landed, they split into 2 groups. The Jun family's people went to flank the Xiao family's people, while the solitary falcon, Feng Wanyun, Jun Wuyi, Xikong and Yi Duanmu Chao Fan, and the 3 Dongfang swordsmen went in the direction of the Xiao family. As for Mei Shuiyan, she led all the forces of Tian Fa to surround Mo Xiao Yao and the rest, who had just come out. Facing the arrival of the Jun family, the Xiao family people's legs went weak and they collapsed to the ground, trembling. They had already lost their last bit of courage to resist. Jun Moxie observed for a while from high up in the sky. After confirming that there were no more fishes or unexpected variables, he finally landed. He had been observing from high up in the sky. If there really was someone who wanted to take the opportunity to escape, then they would be the first person he would personally kill. The situation of the Jun family's encirclement was already set. The Xiao family people had already lost all their will to fight, and they could only surrender without any fear or danger. Thus, Jun Moxie still chose to land on Tian Fa's side. Although Mo Xiao Yao and the rest were heavily injured and had lost most of their battle prowess, they were still undeniably strong experts. If a cornered beast were to erupt in its final frenzy, there might be a considerable number of casualties. The reason why Jun Moxie had spent so much effort to create the current situation was to avoid any casualties. If there were any losses in this situation, and even if the losses were not small, Jun Dashao would not be happy. Venerable Mei, what a good method! Mo Xiao Yao coughed twice, spitting out a mouthful of blood and mud. His face was ashen as he laughed coldly. Such a crafty scheme, cough cough, to think that you could come up with it. Admirable, admirable. You flatter me, you flatter me. Such a method pales in comparison to the various profound methods of the Three Holy Land. Venerable Mo is too kind with his praise. Mei Shuyan said indifferently. Her snow-white robes formed a stark contrast with Mo Xiao Yao's current wretched state. The difference was like the difference between heaven and earth. On the surface, you sent a letter of challenge to a decisive battle, but in the dark, you used such despicable methods to plot against us. Going back on your words, going back on your words. Winning without honor, not winning would be a joke. Mo Xiao Yao's sorrowful eyes swept over the remaining people on his side. He couldn't help but tremble with grief and indignation. Venerable Mei, can you be considered the king of beasts of Tian Fa, the overlord of a generation? Do you feel that such actions are really befitting of your identity as the lord of Tian Fa? So what if I'm the lord of Tian Fa? I'm just a target that the Three Holy Lands want to kill. Mo Xiao Yao, now that the tables have turned, why is it all my fault? Is there any meaning in saying that I'm wrong? Mei Shuyan replied Lingling, her eyes full of disdain. At this moment, Mo Xiao Yao was so angry that he wanted to commit suicide. The experts of the Three Holy Lands who had followed him outnumbered close to 600. But this time, the unexpected collapse of the Sword Peak had crushed almost 500 people to death. The remaining people were less than 100. Such a heavy blow really made Mo Xiao Yao have a strong urge to commit suicide. These were all the elite forces of the war for seizing the heavens. The Three Holy Lands had lost a third of their forces in this battle. How were they going to deal with the upcoming war for seizing the heavens? Right now, Mo Xiao Yao was not being pretentious. He was genuinely worried about the safety of the continent. Previously, when the Three Holy Lands were strong, they had never thought that there would be any accidents in the war for seizing the heavens. They even felt that their strength was too great, and that they had overestimated those bastards of the strange races. That was why they had the tempting idea of going against Tian Fa first. To put it nicely, they had to first stabilize the situation within. First, they would eliminate Tian Fa, and even capture the Beast Kings as mounts to hunt for the Xiandan to increase their own strength. Then, they would gather all their forces to deal with the war for seizing the heavens, taking the glory of the safety of the human race on their own. At the same time, they would wash away the humiliation of the first battle in the war for seizing the heavens, Tian Fa. But right now, Mo Xiao Yao was really regretting it. Chapter 710. Okay. If they could not win, then the strange races would invade, and the mainland would fall into their hands in an instant. The common people would be poisoned, and calamities would befall them. Wouldn't all the suffering be the fault of the Three Holy Lands? Furthermore, when it came to dealing with Tian Fa, it was still the Three Holy Lands who had made the first move. No matter what, this cannot be blamed on Tian Fa. Even if the strange races really did invade, the living environment of the Tian Fa beasts would not change at all. No power could invade the Tian Fa forest. It was like that in the past, and it was like that now. It would be the same in the future. In the current situation, they couldn't advance, couldn't fight, and couldn't escape. It could be said that it was vile to the extreme. Since the other party had come in such a large scale, there was absolutely no reason for them to let them off lightly. It seemed that their deaths were already a foregone conclusion. Mo Xiao Yao turned around and looked at his subordinates' faces full of despair and unwillingness. Suddenly, he gritted his teeth, straightened his back, and walked step by step towards Mei Shuyan. His footsteps were heavy and resolute. His expression was bleak and stirring. His eyes were burning with flames. "Brother Mo, where are you going?" Jia Qing Yun blocked his path in a flash. This savage venerable was also in a sorry state. His face was mournful, and he looked like a ghost. These venerables had probably never been in such a sorry state in their long lives, even when they were in the most difficult and downtrodden times. "Get out of my way. This old man is going to beg for mercy." Mo Xiao Yao's black hair fluttered in the wind. Although his face was full of humiliation, there was still a glimmer of brilliance. "What? Beg for mercy?" Jia Qing Yun cried out in surprise and said resolutely, "Brother Mo, in this world we can be without arrogance, but how can we not have a backbone? We are upright men. If we die, then so be it. How can we bow and scrape in order to extend our lives for a few more days? You and I have been famous for hundreds of years, how can we not cherish it? Even if we die with a bang, it's still better than dragging out an ignoble existence and wasting some time." "Bullshit. Am I someone who is afraid of death? But if you die and I die, what will happen to the war for seizing the heavens? If they lose because of our deaths, who can bear this responsibility? There were still 84 people here. As long as we can return, we can still contribute 4 venerables and 80 superior supreme experts to the war for seizing the heavens. If we all die here, what's the use?" Mo Xiao Yao roared furiously. His eyes were already brimming with tears. As a 4th-level venerable who had dominated his entire life, to make such a decision was undoubtedly 1,000 times more difficult than death. But right now, Mo Xiao Yao had no other choice. He could die, and he didn't fear death, but he couldn't allow himself to become a sinner of the Xian continent. Normally, he could be despicable and shameless. He could even pretend to be a hypocrite and carry out the dirtiest and most despicable deeds. However, even if he were to die 10,000 times, he still wouldn't be able to bear the stain of such a historical sinner. He could die in battle, but he could also be killed. He could harm others, and he could be harmed by others. But at this moment, he could not die. At the very least, he couldn't die without paying any price. This was because the war for seizing the heavens was the greatest goal that he had been striving for ever since he entered the hermitage. Therefore, no matter what, he had to endure the humiliation and live on, for the sake of his life's goal. Looking at Mo Xiao Yao walking over with difficulty, his legs seeming to weigh 1,000 jin, Jia Qing Yun was suddenly speechless. He only felt his eyes heat up, and tears almost flowed out. He didn't say anything else, silently following behind Mo Xiao Yao. With the same determined footsteps, he walked over. Xiao Tianya stood there dejectedly, sighing deeply. Finally, he walked over with Chu Wuqing. Mei Shuyan looked at the 4 people walking over, but she couldn't feel the slightest bit of battle intent from them. She was puzzled. However, Jun Moxie's heart skipped a beat as he thought, could it be, they're here to surrender and beg for mercy? But on second thought, he felt that it was impossible. There was no such thing as surrendering and not killing in this world. Moreover, what kind of people were these 4 people in front of him? They were genuine venerable level experts, and even the weakest of them was a 2nd-level expert. He believed that even the most ordinary spirit Xian experts wouldn't be willing to beg for their lives in such a manner. The people of the pugilistic world had always viewed their reputation as more important than their lives. Why would someone like Mo Xiao Yao, who had such a high status and power, beg for mercy? Venerable Mei, this Mo has come here this time, and we've been utterly defeated. We've lost this battle, and we admit defeat. Mo Xiao Yao's face was filled with grief and humiliation, and his eyes were filled with unwillingness and sorrow. However, he straightened his back and looked straight at Mei Shuyan. Facing his own humiliation, he said word by word. Venerable Mo admitting defeat is beyond this venerable's expectations. I'm sure Venerable Mo has more to say. Mei Shuyan's eyes were still cold, but she said politely. Mo Xiao Yao hesitated for a moment, the corners of his mouth twitching. His face was filled with desolation. His lips moved a few times, but he didn't make a single sound. He just stood there with his back straight. This feeling of a hero at the end of his road, still having to bow and scrape, made this generation's expert feel so sad that he couldn't say anything. Mei Shuyan and Jun Moxie looked at him and suddenly realized something. The venerable of life and death Mo Xiao Yao's hair, which had been as black as ink for over 300 years, had actually turned gray at a speed visible to the naked eye. All this happened in the time it took for him to take a few breaths. Mo Xiao Yao's hair had actually undergone such a huge change. It could be seen that the pain and torment in his heart was indescribable. Begging for mercy. Even if a hooligan lost a fight, it was rare for him to beg for mercy. Since we're enemies, it's either you die or I die. Victory lives, defeat dies. This has been the case since ancient times. Killing an enemy who is a threat to you is a matter of course. Mo Xiao Yao swallowed a mouthful of saliva with difficulty. His lips were trembling like a candle in the wind, but his eyes were fixed on Mei Shuyan without blinking. Now that we've lost, we no longer have the strength to fight back. Our life and death is already in the hands of Venerable Mei. Our deaths are not enough to be regretted. Mo Xiao Yao closed his eyes abruptly, as if he'd been released. But this old man is only here to ask Venerable Mei one thing. Can you let this old man and the rest of us live? After he finished speaking, he stood there with his eyes closed, not saying a single word. It was as if he'd turned into a statue in that instant. 2 lines of old tears slowly seeped out of his tightly shut eyes. At this moment, old wrinkles seemed to suddenly appear on his smooth and round face. At this moment, Jun Moxie and Mei Shuyan could not believe what they were hearing. Begging for mercy. A 4th-level venerable was actually begging for mercy in front of so many people. This was even more unbelievable than the sky collapsing. After a long while, Mei Shuyan shook her head. Looking at Mo Xiao Yao, she asked solemnly, Venerable's words are truly beyond this venerable's expectations. Is the reason for the war for seizing the heavens? No matter what the reason is, this old man is here to beg for his life today. I only ask for 2.5 more years of life, that's enough. Mo Xiao Yao closed his eyes and raised his head. His lips were trembling and his face was pale, but he said word by word, After the war for seizing the heavens, if this old man and the rest of us are lucky enough to not die on the peak of the Pillar of Heavens, then we will definitely go to the Tian Fa forest and commit suicide in front of Venerable Mei. We will return this life to Venerable Mei. Mei Shuyan's expression froze. At this moment, she really did not know how to react. Even with her rich experience, she did not expect to face such a situation at all. She had prepared everything before she came. Fighting to the death, beating the dog when it's down, even if the other party self-destructed, she had prepared everything. But she never thought that with Mo Xiao Yao's pride, he would actually beg for his life. Wasn't this world too crazy? One had to know that the 3 Holy Lands had always known that Mei Shuyan was only a 2nd-level venerable. Even Mo Xiao Yao only found out that Mei Shuyan had suddenly broken through to the 3rd-level venerable realm after coming here. He still did not know that Mei Shuyan had broken through again, and Mo Xiao Yao was a 4th-level venerable, a true 4th-level venerable. If one were to compare it to the past, it would be equivalent to a supreme-level venerable begging a Tianxian expert for mercy. What kind of absurd thing was this? A moment ago they were still fighting to the death, but now they were begging for mercy. What kind of state of mind and courage did this require? What kind of humiliation was this? If not for the war for seizing the heavens, why would someone as prideful as Mo Xiao Yao do such a thing? But for the war for seizing the heavens, it was for the safety of the continent, for the common people. Mei Shuyan understood this deeply. The war for seizing the heavens was also the goal she was fighting for. Thus, she deeply understood Mo Xiao Yao at this moment. Thus, at this moment she was deeply shaken. She almost wanted to agree to the other party's request immediately. For the war for seizing the heavens, Mo Xiao Yao was willing to make such a sacrifice, destroying the reputation he had painstakingly built for 300 years. Then, what else was there for her to not let go of? She had always viewed the war for seizing the heavens above everything else, and it was the goal she was fighting for in this life. Even if Mo Xiao Yao went back on his word, there was no possibility for her to reject him. Wait! Jun Moxie Lengling opened his mouth, his eyes still cold as ice. Mo Xiao Yao, Venerable Xiao Yao, do you think that by bringing up the war for seizing the heavens and pleading for mercy in the name of justice and suffering for the common people, we will let you go? So much so that he was moved to tears and saw you off respectfully? This sentence was like the sharpest needle, piercing into Mo Xiao Yao's heart. Mo Xiao Yao's entire body twitched in pain, the muscles on his face spasming, but he didn't say a word. Do you think that by making such a huge sacrifice, we will naturally let you live? But should it really be like this? Jun Moxie said coldly. Mo Xia. This is related to the war for seizing the heavens. All worldly grudges are trivial matters. Venerable Mo's actions are for the sake of the war for seizing the heavens, for the future of the continent. I can understand his feelings. Mei Shuyan said anxiously. Chapter 711. At this moment, all the Xian beasts of Tian Fa prostrated themselves in admiration. This brother-in-law of theirs was simply too valiant. Even someone as domineering as Big Sister could be shouted at like this. This was simply too amazing. Mei Shuyan's face suddenly turned pale, and a trace of anger appeared in her eyes. She was not angry at Jun Moxie's impoliteness towards her, but at Jun Moxie's indifference towards the world. Mo Xia, how can you be like this? For the war for seizing the heavens, what are personal gains and losses? Mei Shuyan took a deep breath and suppressed her anger. Even Venerable Mo is willing to make such a sacrifice. Do we really have to take his life? Is there really any meaning to it? You're really soft-hearted. Didn't you hear me when I told you to scram to the side just now? Jun Moxie said angrily. If it wasn't for the war for seizing the heavens, Hermitage, would the 10 superior supremes be able to injure you for 100 years? If it wasn't for the war for seizing the heavens, would the 3 holy lands dare to deal with you? Who knows how many people have already died in your hands? If it wasn't for making use of your big picture, would they dare? Would they dare? Time and time again for that so-called war for seizing the heavens, and you've suffered losses time and time again. Jun Moxie laughed coldly and said, and this time, the reason for you to beg for mercy is actually because of the war for seizing the heavens. Let me ask you, when are you going to suffer losses before you truly understand? Let me ask you, if the roles were reversed, and the one begging for mercy was you, do you think the 3 holy lands would let you go? Don't tell me that you're not living for the war for seizing the heavens. Of course I can imagine their choice, but this time is different. Mei Shuyan hurriedly explained. I can sense the Venerable of life and death's intentions, really, so what? There won't be any difference. Jun Moxie said coldly, because this time, they are still making use of your big picture view. I have never denied that this time, Mo Xiao Yao is truly doing this for the sake of the war for seizing the heavens, for the sake of the people of the world. Not only can you feel his intentions, but I can also feel his sincerity and his true intentions. But this is not a reason for us to let them go as soon as they beg for mercy. Do you understand? This was the first time Jun Moxie and Mei Shuyan had argued since they met. It was a very serious dispute. Jun Moxie, don't measure the heart of a gentleman with your own mean measure. Even though we're in dire straits today, we're not people you can casually slander. Jia Qing Yun gritted his teeth as the veins on his temples throbbed. His hatred had already reached the extreme. I've always been a vile person. Have I ever denied it? But, are you all gentlemen? June Moxie Lengling looked at him. I only have one question for you, Mo Xiao Yao. Don't act like you've been wronged. Raise your head and open your eyes. Since you've already said the most difficult thing to say, don't you dare to open your eyes and look at the person in front of you who has the power to decide your life and death? Mo Xiao Yao opened his eyes tiredly, a deep sense of humiliation in them. Lengling said, What do you want to ask? Ask away. This old man is all ears. I'm only going to ask you a simple question. All these years, when Hermitage was dealing with Tian Fa's Venerable Mei, did he always make use of Venerable Mei's weakness of the big picture? He only dared to make a move because he knew that Venerable Mei would not kill for the sake of the war for seizing the heavens? It's very simple, isn't it? The answer is yes and no. Give me a clear answer. June Moxie Lengling asked. Yes. A trace of shame appeared on Mo Xiao Yao's pale face, but he answered without hesitation. That was the truth. They had always been making use of Mei Shuiyan's kindness, which was why they had targeted her time and time again. If Venerable Mei is a demon who does all kinds of evil and has no scruples, would you dare to do this? June Moxie continued to ask. We wouldn't dare. But if we had the confidence to kill her in one fell swoop, we would still target her. Mo Xiao Yao sighed. Because if she were to launch a Xian beast wave to attack the continent, it would be a disaster for the entire continent. So if that's the case, we need to consider it carefully. It's a pity she isn't, but luckily she isn't. Mei Shuyan closed her eyes in pain. She had already guessed that this was the reason, but now that she heard it with her own ears, she felt as if her heart was being pierced by 1,000 arrows. She also felt sad that what she had done was not worth it. So the reason why her former comrades had targeted her was because of her kindness. It was because of her kindness and her ability to see the big picture that allowed them to be so unscrupulous, ambushing and killing her time and time again, almost causing her to be consigned to eternal damnation. Because they knew that her retaliation would never be too ruthless. She would never deal with them like how they dealt with her. So they had no fear. What was wrong with this world? Was kindness the reason for one to die? Kindness the reason for one to be framed? Kindness the reason for one to be oppressed? Kindness the reason for others to be despicable and shameless? At this moment, Mei Shuyan fell into deep confusion. Now you have lost. But you still want to bring up the war for seizing the heavens to talk about it. June Moxie suddenly laughed mockingly and said, I know that Venerable Mo is regretting in your heart right now. So you begged for mercy for the war for seizing the heavens because you really wanted to contribute to the war for seizing the heavens. Undoubtedly, this goal is noble and noble. Moreover, you have also made a great sacrifice. Just this point alone, I admire you. But I have to tell you, no matter how noble the reason is, it cannot be used as an excuse for you to plunder and do evil. June Moxie laughed coldly. For the war for seizing the heavens, for the people of the world, you make it sound nice. You did indeed do that, and you also sacrificed a lot. But this does not mean anything. You still have to pay the price for doing something wrong. No one thinks that just because you contributed to the war for seizing the heavens, you should stretch out your neck to be killed. Even if it is a so-called heroic deed, it cannot be made up for with merit. June Moxie said mercilessly. Some people rob so that their families and children can eat their fill. Some even more noble ones do it because their families have adopted countless orphans. But those people are robbers after all. And this is already a fact. Some people kill to protect their loved ones, but they still killed people. This is also a fact. No one will let them off just because they have their own difficulties. This is the truth, so why can you be an exception? June Moxie said aggressively. You killed your comrades, killed your companions, slaughtered Xian beasts, and hunted Xian Dan, all in the name of increasing your strength for the war for seizing the heavens. And I also believe that after you increased your strength, you really used it for the war for seizing the heavens. But what does it have to do with each other? The war for seizing the heavens has always been your duty. But it is not an excuse for you. And it is not an excuse for you to do bad things and be despicable. June Moxie said. Today, I will not let you off. He said calmly and pointed at the defeated soldiers in front of him. Mo Xiaoyao, I believe that you are speaking the truth. But do you know how many of you died today? Look back at your subordinates, which one of them doesn't hate us to the bone? There are 80 superior supreme experts gathered here. Mo Xiaoyao, even if I believe that you won't take revenge, what about them? Can you guarantee it? Not a single one of them will take revenge on me, on the June family? Tell me, can I let you off? Can I let the tiger return to the mountain? Do I dare? If you were me, would you dare? Mo Xiaoyao sighed sadly. He felt that June Moxie's words were a great humiliation to him at first. But as he spoke, Mo Xiaoyao finally understood. What they had done was too much, too outrageous. The three Holy Lands had always thought that as long as it was for the war for seizing the heavens, whatever they did was right. But this kind of thinking itself was a big mistake. June Moxie, why don't you trust us? Must you force us to swear a blood oath or write a blood letter? Xiao Tianya gritted his teeth and asked. A blood oath is just a sentence. It can be written with just a touch of the lips. A blood letter is also just a piece of paper. Do you think that I will believe you? June Moxie laughed coldly. You want me to use the lives of my entire family to bet on the reliability of your oath? You can even go against the oath of your ancestors from 10,000 years ago and attack Tian Fa. If I believe you, wouldn't I be a fool? I will not take such a risk, and I dare not take it. We have suffered a crushing defeat in this battle, and yet we were still planning for the future. It turns out that we have overestimated ourselves and brought humiliation upon ourselves. Mo Xiaoyao laughed bitterly. Turning around, he saw the anger and hatred on the faces of his 80 subordinates. Even Mo Xiaoyao could feel the deep hatred in their eyes. He could not help but let out a long sigh. Just like what June Moxie had said, he could guarantee that he would not take revenge, and he could even guarantee that Jia Qingyun, Xiao Tianya, and the other venerables would not take revenge. But what about the rest of them? Looking at the resentment on their faces and the resentment on their bodies, if one were to say that they wouldn't take revenge, even he wouldn't believe it. That was **T. With this kind of deep-rooted hatred, even if he had repeatedly ordered them not to take revenge, there would still be people who would secretly go and take revenge. As for saying that, if they were lucky enough to survive 2.5 years later, they would go to Tian Fa to receive their death. That was even more ridiculous. June Moxie would not be afraid of their revenge, and neither would Mei Shuyan. But what about the rest of the June family? What about the other beasts of Tian Fa? Not all of them were venerables. There was also the Duanmu family, Xikong family, Dongfang family. As long as these people left alive today, these families would definitely suffer a bloody revenge. This was for sure. Without a doubt. The 10 superior supremes were able to plot against Venerable Mei back then, almost killing him. Not to mention the fact that there were 80 pinnacle experts here. Although Mei Shuyan was injured back then, the strength of these superior supremes was not to be doubted. Other than the June family, it was not impossible for them to wipe out all the other families. Even 1 or 2 of these 80 people could easily do it. Chapter 7:12. The 4 venerables had already thought of this in an instant. They were all experienced people. If they didn't think of this, they would be too naive. Thus they were all speechless. At this moment, they felt that the war for seizing the heavens that they had always regarded as their reason and belief was a joke that was not funny at all. June Moxie had clearly told them one thing. No matter how noble one's goal was, it was not a reason to be despicable and evil. No matter what the reason was, It could not cover up the sins that they had committed. Behind him, a superior supreme expert stepped forward angrily. June Moxie, you're going too far. Our 3 holy lands have been doing this for the sake of the world, for the safety of the continent. What sins are there to speak of? Have you not considered that if we all die, when the war for seizing the heavens arrives and the strange races invade, who will stop them? Are you going to let the world be slaughtered by the strange races? The safety of the continent? The lives of the world? June Moxie tilted his head and looked at him. What does it have to do with me? I've never considered it. I only know one thing. If I'm killed by you, even if the entire world is destroyed, I won't be able to feel it. I'm a selfish person, I've always been. June Moxie's eyes flashed with a cold light as he said slowly, I've always believed that if people don't offend me, I won't offend them. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. I don't care if it's for the war for seizing the heavens or for the lives of the world. As long as you offend me, you have to die. Either I die or you die. And I don't want to die. My goal is very simple. I just want to survive. I've never offended you on my own accord. But you came to bully and humiliate me. Left with no choice, I could only resist. And now that you're at a disadvantage, you want to talk to me about the war for seizing the heavens and the lives of the world? Ha 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 ha. June Moxie laughed. One can be shameless. But you can't be this shameless. June Moxie, you bastard. Behind Mo Xiao Yao, there was a wave of angry curses. No need to say more. Mo Xiao Yao chuckled and raised his hand calmly to stop the chaos. Suddenly, he straightened his back and said, If I'm going to die, then so be it. What's the point of saying so much? Now that things have come to this, it's useless to say anything more. However, we are all people of this world. Even if we die, we must die with dignity. He would never die a cowardly death. I, Mo Xiao Yao, will not die in the hands of others. Mo Xiao Yao smiled and grabbed a handful of snow from the ground, carefully wiping it off his face. Venerable Xiao Yao, even in death, I am free and unfettered. His demeanor had already returned to his usual calm demeanor. The unfettered venerable wiped his face very carefully, and the blood stains on his face were all wiped clean. In fact, every single movement of his was done in a natural and elegant manner. Then, he tidied up his messy hair and beard and turned around. When he faced his subordinates, he had already returned to the carefree demeanor of a venerable Xiao Yao. Only when he turned around did Jia Qingyun and the rest realize that there was a flash of humiliation in Mo Xiao Yao's eyes. Humiliation. A 4th-level venerable had no choice but to lower his voice and beg for mercy from the enemy, only to be rejected. This was simply unbelievable. In their minds, with Mo Xiao Yao's status, it was unthinkable that he would lower himself to plead for mercy from 2 juniors whose strength and status were far below his. It could even be said that it was rare and commendable. No matter what, he had given a peach and plum, and he would return the favor with a jade. If the other party was willing to let him go, how could Mo Xiao Yao not return the favor? No matter what, the other party should have at least given them some face. They should have even been moved by Mo Xiao Yao's consideration of the big picture, for the people of the world, and let them leave solemnly. Who would have thought that June Moxie would reject him so coldly and heartlessly? This was even more unbelievable. Brother Mo, you don't have to worry about this matter. How will today's matter affect your illustrious reputation? Today's matter will even leave your name in history. Only this kind of short-sighted junior who doesn't care about the big picture would ignore your kindness for the world. This old man looks down on such a person from the bottom of his heart. Jia Qingyun consoled. Then, he sighed and said, The pugilistic world today is no longer the pugilistic world we are familiar with. There are fewer and fewer hot-blooded people in this world. His words were filled with sorrow, as though the morals of the world were deteriorating with each passing day, and the hearts of the people were no longer what they used to be. Mo Xiao Yao shook his head slowly, his expression helpless. Brother Jia, we are all experienced people, why must we lie to ourselves? Today's outcome is the cause of the past. This old man only truly understands today. Venerable Mei has always been fighting for the war for seizing the heavens, but when did we let her off even once? She kept the big picture in mind, giving way at every step, but what did we do? We pressed forward at every step. When she took a step back, we took a step forward. Did we consider the big picture? Now that things have come to this, how can we still have the face to accuse the other party of not caring about the big picture? Let me ask you, if the person in question was Jun Moxie instead of Brother Jia, with so many concerns behind you, would you be able to let go of nearly 100 top-notch experts who have become your mortal enemies? Do you really have the guts to do so? Jia Qingyun froze, his face filled with awkwardness, unable to say anything else. Everyone, take care of yourselves. This old man feels that his worldly affairs are over, so I will be taking my leave first. Mo Xiao Yao looked at the crowd calmly, his back facing Jun Moxie. Without turning back, he said in a clear voice, from today onwards, be it friend or foe, as long as there are survivors, please help me pass a message when you meet the lords of the three Holy Lands. A trace of regret appeared on his face as he said slowly, don't use nobility as an excuse, don't find excuses for wrongdoings. I hope that from now on, the three Holy Lands will not bring shame to the once glorious name of the war for seizing the heavens. This is the greatest glory of the three Holy Lands in the last 10,000 years. He paused and smiled bitterly. Remember, it is only glory, not qualification. With that, a warm smile appeared on Mo Xiao Yao's face as he recited, don't say that the clear sky is truly without a path, be free when you can. This sentence was the origin of his name and that of the elusive world of Immortal's Palace Master Mo Wu Dao, who was also his own blood brother. The two of them were originally the children of officials, and when they were born, their father was removed from his position. A friend came to visit and gave their father a poem, when will fame and fortune be over, glory and splendor will be thrown away in an instant. Don't say that the clear sky is truly without a path, be free when you can. From this poem, their father chose the words, doubtless and carefree, and used them as the names of the two brothers. Mo Wu Dao. No matter when, don't run out of paths to walk on. Mo Xiao Yao. No matter when, don't be too free, don't get carried away. This was their father's wish for his son, a blessing and a warning. At this point, other than his father's wish, Mo Xiao Yao could only think of his own brother, Mo Wu Dao, and not the Lord of Hermitage, Missouri Wu Dao. With that, Mo Xiao Yao sighed softly, and his body shook. Suddenly, he stood still, motionless. Above his head, a thick white smoke rose, swirling and lingering for a long time. Even the biting cold wind could not move it. After a long time, the thick white smoke gradually turned into a mist and flew into the sky, finally disappearing without a trace. Mo Xiao Yao destroyed his own cultivation, severed his own meridians, and died on the peak of the snowy mountain. A fourth-level venerable had fallen just like that. Jia Qingyun stood there in a daze, suddenly feeling that everything in front of him was like a dream, so unreal. A fourth-level venerable was originally such an unreachable existence, but he was forced to a dead end, committing suicide in front of everyone. A trace of pity flashed in Jun Moxie's eyes, but his face was still cold and stern, cruel and unmoving. Jia Qingyun, I'll give you a chance too. You can also choose to commit suicide. A chance to have an intact corpse, a chance to die in a dignified manner. Jun Moxie said expressionlessly, his tone devoid of any emotion. Mo Xie, they cannot die. Mei Shuyan's face was filled with anxiety. This is ultimately related to the war for seizing the heavens. This is a huge matter that concerns the future of the world. You really have to consider this carefully. Once your strength is reduced, the outcome of the battle could be reversed, and the war for seizing the heavens will really be over. Shuiyan, why are you still so insistent? Can't you see the reality in front of you? Didn't you notice the look in these people's eyes? I've already killed no less than 400 to 500 people. Those who died were all good friends of theirs. They had lived together for at least 100 years. This deep relationship that spanned across so many years is even more intimate than that of family. I believe that compared to those strange races, these people are more willing for me to die. As long as I escape this calamity, they will definitely use all means to deal with me and my family. I have no reason to keep these people alive. June Moxie said indifferently. If I'm alone, I can naturally not care. But I have family and friends, how can they not care? Your insistence is equivalent to risking our family and friends. In my heart, the safety of my family is more important than anything else. I will not take the risk, not even a little. Even if they are really good people, I will still kill them without hesitation. Because things have already reached this point, there is no more room for negotiation. Furthermore, they are just a bunch of complete hypocrites. June Moxie said indifferently. Even if it is a sin, I will bear it alone. Carrying the sin is better than carrying the guilt. You are really too heartless. Mei Shuyan looked at him sorrowfully. Why don't you have the slightest bit of pity? Towards the world, towards the people, don't you have any sense of responsibility? Even a little bit? Shuiyan, you said that I am heartless? No sense of responsibility? Is it really me who is heartless? If because of a moment of soft-heartedness in exchange for the death of your family and the slaughter of your friends, how would you feel at that time? If not for the fact that I have so many concerns in my heart, so what if I let you make a mistake once? But can we afford to make a mistake? As for the war for seizing the heavens, even if all these people die, it does not mean that the war for seizing the heavens will be lost. June Moxie said coldly. Even if Butcher Zhang is dead, I, June Moxie, will not eat a pig with fur. On the contrary, if the safety of the world is placed in the hands of these hypocrites, even if we win, it will be a humiliation. Chapter 7:13. But they are truly fighting for the war for seizing the heavens, even if they have been despicable and despicable. But their goal was lofty and great. Why can't we give them a way out when we're at the end of the road? Even if we end up with the reputation of killing them after the war for seizing the heavens, killing them at that time is still better than now. At the same time, it will increase our strength for the war for seizing the heavens. Mei Shuyan said loudly. Aren't you also fighting for the war for seizing the heavens? But you have never been despicable or despicable. Your goal is just as lofty, just as great. But they still use all sorts of methods to deal with you. When you were at the end of the road, did they let you go? June Moxie sighed as he looked at Mei Shuyan. In their hearts, such hatred can only be repaid with blood, a tooth for a tooth. A debt of blood can only be washed clean with fresh blood. If it were us, it would be the same. Girl, you're still too inexperienced. You're too stubborn today. Mei Shuyan sighed and her tone softened as she begged. Monsieur, please let them go this time. For the war for seizing the heavens, for the people of the world. Monsieur, I'm begging you, be noble for once. Believe in humanity for once. No. Talking about humanity with inhumane people is the most foolish thing to do. You've already been bound by the burden of the war for seizing the heavens for too long. Why do you still want to be so foolish? Don't tell me that you'll only realize it when a tragedy happens in front of you. June Moxie shook his head slowly and resolutely, his face like a marble sculpture, cold and expressionless. In the future, I will also participate in the war for seizing the heavens. June Monsieur slightly raised his head, and looked at the drifting white clouds in the sky. Then, he said leisurely, but I hope to participate with my comrades, and not with my enemies around me, because I don't feel at ease leaving my back to them. Last time in the heavenly south, humans fought Xian beasts, but it was full of betrayal and betrayal. I don't want to experience it myself. The war for seizing the heavens doesn't necessarily need the 3 Holy Lands. June Moxie said lightly. Even if they all die, there's still me, June Moxie. Since I killed them, I will compensate them. I'm not doing this for the war for seizing the heavens, but to exterminate the strange races. This world will no longer have a war for seizing the heavens. It's not for the so-called nobility. I just don't want there to be so much hypocrisy in this world. June Moxie said sharply, I hate hypocrisy. I am extremely disgusted, especially those who put on a noble appearance but unscrupulously harm others for their own selfish interests or narrow-mindedness. I don't just want to kill these people. When my strength is truly sufficient, I will also exterminate the 3 Holy Lands. June Moxie smiled lightly. The cold wind blew his hair, causing it to dance on this mountain peak. Just like that, he used an aloof attitude but a cold and emotionless tone and said lightly, because there's one thing you don't know. Actually, the greatest harm to this world is never external aggression, but internal strife. External aggression can never truly destroy a country or a world, but internal strife can very quickly destroy everything. And right now, the 3 Holy Lands have already become the source of internal strife. Even if Tian Fa is gone, you and I are gone, the 3 Holy Lands will still fight among themselves. Fighting for the title of number 1 in the world, and that supreme glory. Since that's the case, why don't this glory belong to me? So I must kill. My original intention was never for the sake of the so-called world's common people or the so-called peace of the continent. I am not that noble. But if others want to bully my head, I will not allow it. Not the 3 Holy Lands, not the strange races. Not the venerables, not even the saints. Even if the 9 Nether First Young Master comes back to life, he can forget about dictating my fate. June Moxie smiled arrogantly and said word by word, my fate is up to me, not up to the heavens. If we fight, then fight to the end. As long as we live, we must stand tall. If we die naturally, everything will be over. I am not a good person, nor a bad person. I am not a gentleman, nor am I a vile person. But at the very least, I will not be a hypocrite. I am the evil monarch. The monarch of all evil. The king of all evil. As mentioned above, this is the law of the evil monarch. Mei Shuiyan took a step back. She was clear that there was no point in saying anything else. Her man was actually such a special person. At this moment, she suddenly felt that the person she was facing was not June Moxie, but the 9 Nether First Young Master who did things his own way and dominated the world. This strange feeling made her feel fear, and even a little unfamiliar. June Mo Xie, who was standing opposite her, also seemed a little distant. Even if he felt wronged, even if he did not understand, but couldn't he just tolerate it for once? So Mei Shuiyan did not understand. But she had neglected the fact that a seemingly benevolent tolerance could be exchanged for endless oppression. And her tolerance would be the best excuse for the enemy to press on. And they would become more and more unscrupulous. And a moment of soft-heartedness could cause the most irreversible despair and regret. Because there was no such thing as benevolence between enemies. For example, if she had been able to kill all 10 experts the first time, then no matter how arrogant the people from the 3 Holy Lands were, they wouldn't have been so arrogant to this extent. Tolerance in the face of evil was the best breeding ground for evil. Regarding this point, June Moxie, who had lived 2 lives, understood it better than anyone else. So he would not give his enemies any chance or space to retaliate. No one could influence June Moxie's decision. Even if it was his beloved Mei Shuiyan, he could not. On the opposite side, The experts from the 3 Holy Lands were already clamoring with grief and indignation. They all stood up and roared as if they were ready to perish together with the enemy. Take revenge for Venerable Mo. Take revenge for our dead brothers. Want us to commit suicide? Not so easy. Everyone, let's fight with them. Fight with our lives. Killing one is worth it, killing 2 is worth it. June Moxie did not move. Ling Ling looked at them rushing over, her face like an ancient stone statue, indifferent and calm. He slowly raised one hand and looked coldly at the people from the 3 Holy Lands. Suddenly, he let out an earth-shattering roar. Kill! Kill them quickly, don't leave a single one alive. Mei Shuyan closed her eyes in agony. Following June Moxie's order, which was filled with the scent of blood, a thunderstorm erupted in the air. 1,500 peak level 9 Xian beasts and beast kings attacked at the same time. Whether it was diving down or charging forward, all the Xian beasts charged forward with the force of a thunderbolt. They had been holding it in for a long time. The battle thirst in their blood was already boiling. What they needed was battle. Only battle. Endless battle. Battle to their heart's content. To them, it was not important whether the 3 Holy Lands were good or bad. In fact, it was meaningless. What did that war for seizing the heavens have to do with them? If you need us to go, we'll go. If you don't want us to go, we won't go. It's not a big deal. All they knew was that these people had hurt their brothers and wanted to kill their boss. That was a true, irreconcilable enmity. Only by tearing them apart would they be able to vent their anger. Screams rang out continuously. Jia Qingyun let out a loud roar as he gathered his remaining strength and struck out with his palms, sending more than 10 beast kings flying. Drenched in blood, he charged towards Mei Shuyan and Jun Mo Xie, laughing loudly. What are you laughing at? Do you think you still have a chance to leave this place alive? Jun Moxie furrowed his brows. Haha. I'm laughing at the fact that you guys don't even know death is near at hand. Jia Qingyun laughed maniacally and panted heavily. His face was a little sinister, but he said happily, "This old man used the last bit of Xian Qi to come here just to tell you one thing. Do you think that the 3 Holy Lands only sent this group of people to deal with you? Ha ha, Jun Mo Xie, you've killed us today. So what if you can kill us all? You will pay the price for this. When you return to Tianxiang, you can go and cry for your grandfather's funeral, haha. Nonsense. I'm afraid you guys don't have that ability. Jun Moxie said calmly. I know. This old man knows that your mysterious and unfathomable master is keeping watch in Tianxiang. But do you know who is going to Tianxiang? Haha. Jia Qingyun looked at Jun Moxie cruelly and said, Yes. You're cruel, you're decisive. You're heartless. But the people going to Tianxiang are the saints of the 3 Holy Lands. A total of 9 saints. So what if your master is amazing? Can he cover the sky with one hand? Saints. Do you know? Haha. Ignorant child. What kind of earth-shattering character do you think your master is? No matter how amazing he is, can he be more powerful than 9 saints? You don't have to look at me like that. I'm sure the Jun family in Tianxiang City has already been turned into a pile of rubble. Your grandfather Jun Zhantian has also become a pile of dead meat, emitting a stench. Ha ha. Jun Moxie, this is your retribution. Retribution. Jia Qingyun laughed maniacally. Mei Shuyan's expression changed drastically. Jun Moxie's body flashed and his hand moved like lightning, grabbing Jia Qingyun's collar. What you said, is it true? Jia Qingyun was already at the end of his rope. In order to get close to Jun Moxie and Mei Shuyan, he had used up all his remaining strength. Facing Jun Moxie's grab, he had no strength to resist. But he had no intention of resisting. Being grabbed by Jun Moxie, he suddenly tilted his head and smiled cruelly. What do you think? What do you think? Protect your family? Let's see how you're going to protect them. After this battle, not only the June family, but all the forces here that have assisted the June family will not be able to escape the fate of having their families destroyed. I'll be waiting for your arrival in the Yellow Springs. That day won't be too long, ha. Before his laughter stopped, Jia Qingyun suddenly summoned his last bit of xianqi. His body trembled violently, and a series of muffled explosions rang out from his chest. He had actually destroyed his internal organs and died a violent death. His body hung limply in June Moxie's hand, but all signs of life had left him forever. But even though he was no longer breathing, the sinister smile on his face was still there. His gray eyes still flashed with a vicious light. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.